ideal. All right, so this is what we did last stream. I was happy with this, if I do say so myself. It was a fun sketch exchange. The prompt I got was a flamingo cocktail. So I put flamingos in a martini glass. I didn't go like super creative with it, but it was fun. I enjoyed, painting animals. I don't normally do that. Fun colors. I was happy. So now, let's start painting something that is not flamingos. I back to normal scheduled stuff, thumbnailing, coming up with ideas. Anyone can offer ideas, of course. And then, I'll have a webcam somewhere. There I am. I have a face. So yeah, I'm just if anybody has any suggestions, but first, how is everybody? Hope your weekend was good, as always. Hopefully every day is good. Even not the weekend. Doesn't even matter. Screw the weekend. Hope your day is doing good. Or your life. I don't know. It's getting probably too deep or big topic for us. Okay, so I want to paint. I don't know. But let's just jump in. Let's just jump in. Maybe some greens. Maybe some foreground. Maybe I'm not gonna. Maybe I'll do like some green, some big shapes, some overhangs. We like our overhangs. Maybe it's like a cave that we're looking in. I don't know. Maybe not a cave. I have no idea. Just starting out with a color palette, trying to put stuff on here. Maybe it's like a little booth. Maybe there's a booth, like some sort of. Trying to think. Maybe like imagine you're walking in a park, and there's a little like pop-up door, and I don't know, it's kind of there. I'm not sure. I don't know what I want to paint. I'm just gonna kind of sort of go with that. I don't like that idea, but I mean, I'm not excited about painting it, I should say. Maybe it's really big. They're very big pop-up store. I'm not excited about the idea, but if I make it look cool and it starts to go in a direction, I will get excited about it. That's kind of how I am. Like I know myself well enough that I don't need to love the idea when I start. I think I have a theory, and I think this is nearly a universal thing. I don't know if it actually is. I'm just asserting that. But I think people who are like, I don't like this, or this is not for me. I think we all end, like, if we say that and it ends up not being for you, it's because you have convinced yourself that you don't like something about it, rather than trying to actually find what you do. I don't know. Obviously, there are probably exceptions, but I feel like most people can enjoy most things, given the right like mindset and approach to it. That doesn't mean that you want to put that effort in, because I don't. I don't always, there's lots of things I don't like that I'm not gonna spend energy to like try to like. It's not easy, and I'd rather do easy stuff that I know I like. But I don't know, because so often, whether it's an idea or an activity, it's like your interests change and the context matters, and there's so many things that matter around that. So yeah, that's my hot take, starting off the day strong. But I think it relates to ideas, because I think a lot of times we discount ideas before we ever, or we dismiss them before we ever give them a chance. And so it's like, I don't like the idea. It doesn't sound exciting for me to paint like a little pop-up shop. But once it starts looking good, and I start getting some of the work done, and it, I can start to like imagine myself in the space or something, suddenly it's like my it starts becoming a neat thing because I can start coming up with additional ideas. You know, the story starts coming together. So I feel like this is an example of like it doesn't. Also, I'm on the wrong layer, aren't I? So what do I want to do here? I mean, are we painting like 3-point, 2-point perspective, kind of? Kind of are. So yeah. I always start to stream off with a hot take. I don't actually think I do, but sometimes I feel like that. But yeah, if anyone's doing any art or has done any art this weekend, feel free to share. I know anyone who was here on Saturday, we did the sketch exchange. So we had this is what I drew for that. I'm pretty proud of this. I like that it's a little higher key than I normally paint. It feels like it's balanced in values and just, I don't know, I like it. I probably could have done more work on like anatomy of these things and showing, you know, form and painting these things in a way that looks like they're anatomically correct, because I don't know what's going on with this little tubular neck thingy. This one looks a little better. It feels like it could actually, you know, exist kind of. This, I don't know what's going on. Like, where is it in space? You know, what's happening? Is it going towards us here? Or is it going away from us here? Or is it going this way? Like, I don't know. It's hard to tell. Could kind of be bending in any way. I think some shadows could have done a lot here, where like, if this part were in shadow and this part were in light, you could kind of understand that like the light's coming here, hitting this area, and like that would help show the form because the light would only. But yeah. Anyway. Let's get painting. Putting some trees. Again, I don't like where this is going, but I don't want to dismiss it quite yet. I think that's something that I do too often. I think most people do it too often, especially if you're coming up with ideas and it's not like your job. I think it's very easy to dismiss ideas too fast. Maybe there's some reds or some other colors in here, like a checker pattern or something. Again, I'm just putting in something. It doesn't need to be a lot. I feel like a shop might have some checker pattern here, you know? Maybe it's checkered. It's not checkered, sorry. I don't know what pattern this is, but it's not checkered. It's just a striped. That's the word, striped. Basic English skills. I am failing. Okay, and then in here, maybe there's like a cross bar. We have some the green back here. We can see just a little space. Maybe there's like a flag. We got some flags sticking here. Hey, Fox, how's it going? Maybe some flag thingies sticking down there. I don't know. I'm not trying to make this perfect. Just trying to quickly sketch an idea. And, you know, and maybe it'll be like the starting point of a better idea. You know? That's the hope. It's not that this is the idea. This isn't necessarily the thing that we're going to paint. Also, I'm going to put some contrast behind this, so we can see more of the thing. Maybe some green in the foreground as well, and some like browns or something. don't know what this is. Maybe trees? I mean, we could have trees back here. I know trees are kind of... I probably use them almost too much. Or, you know what? What if we had, like, another thingy up here? Almost like a fort. Like a stacked... Like, maybe like a tree house back here or something. But it's sort of off in the distance, and it's not immediately... Maybe it is immediately clear. So here's a tree. The shape of a tree, anyway. Back here. I don't know. Just kind of a weird shape in the background that makes our brain go, what's that? That's what I'm trying to do. But yeah, Fox, be lurking. No worries. Happy lurking. Have a good lurk. Hope you're doing well today, as always. Maybe there's a little cart over here, tucked against a tree. I don't know, like an old... I don't know how that's gonna look. Just putting some shapes. Shapes that don't have to be anything in particular right now. One thing I'm trying to get better at is, like, quickly paint in the negative shapes of things. So, like, for example, if I have a wheel here, rather than paint something like this and then paint the wheel, which obviously would work, right? That is a way to do it. Kind of do the reverse, where, like, if I have a shape that I like the silhouette of here, and I'm like, I know there's going to be a wheel here, maybe I'll go, like, you know, paint these little triangular shapes here to show the wheel or something. Like, just so that, I mean, that doesn't look good, but that's kind of, I mean, it's not a big issue, but it's, I think it's, in some way, would train myself to think in a slightly different way. Which I do think like that a little bit, but not as much as I probably could. But yeah, this is kind of nice. And then maybe up here we have some little lights and stuff sticking in, some dappled light. Maybe we get these little bit of warm, you know, kind of some light there, and then maybe the red, we go a little bit more. Just where the light would hit, you know? Just some little bits of light. And then maybe down here we get some brighter colors. Hey! Spin Kitty! How's it going? Hope you're doing well. Maybe some more light down here. Maybe there's like a little thingy that sticks out. Like a little stand. I don't know. Again, not trying to make this structurally perfect. But just like, you know, silhouette stuff. Stuff like that. Here's something. Maybe, we can see the underside of these. So maybe I just put some little lines here to imply that. You know, maybe we go a little darker on some of these. It goes. Glad to finally catch you. Glad to have you here. Hope your weekend was okay. I know not everybody's weekend is always amazing, but I hope yours was amazing. Okay, I don't know if I like this. I think it's okay. I mean, there's some big graphic shapes in the background. We have one thing with some perspective in the foreground. Everything else is sort of graphic shapes. We can always add form. I don't know. I mean, I am not convinced that this is going to be something that we continue on with, but it's a fun starting point. Sort of like maybe we do another version of that. It was a little hectic, but not bad. It had some fun doodling on Sunday. Nice. Also, I read that as noodling. I think that is a sign that my eyes need to, well, my glasses need to be cleaned or wiped off on my shirt. Which It's, I guess, a clean shirt, so it's kind of a way of cleaning. Anyway, mood. It's a good warm-up. Doodling on Sunday. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so I don't like what I'm doing here, but that's okay. I don't need to like it. Is this on the same one layer? Oh, it is. Okay. Paste. Let's do this. This is mostly on one layer. Now, I don't need this to look like this. This does not need to be in this shape, in this way. This was really just like a starting point. Maybe we do big trees and there's things hanging down. Again, I'm gonna mostly start black and white, or in my head it's black and white. I'm trying to think about the lightness and darkness as usual. Maybe I want some sort of elevation though here. I'm just gonna make a random shape. So here's my random shape. And I'm gonna make it medium value. And everything else is gonna be light value. And that random shape can be a little building. Maybe there's a dark ledge here. Or how about a light ledge? That could work. Maybe this is the light ledge. And then the dark ledge will have these little shapes. I'm doing like, if there's like little support structures and we're looking up at them, they might have that shape. I don't know if that'll actually work. Also, I don't know why it's so, where it's so angled. I don't know, that's probably okay. Man, you got perspective ingrained. I don't know about that. I don't know about that. I'm just eyeballing it, and it's certainly not gonna be perfect, you know? Certainly will not be perfect, but I don't mind if it's not perfect right now. Yeah, I'm not even sure I like that. Actually, let's do something different. I mean, there's certain things that I know. So, like, for example, when it comes to perspective, like, I have a pretty good sense of, like, where my eye's going to be. So if it's down here, for example, somewhere, everything above us is going to be, like, if we draw, like, a circle above us, like, hovering, like a can of soup or something, we're going to see the bottom of the can of soup, right? Because I know it's above us. So, like, most of it's just general approximations. Like, I'm not gonna draw the can of soup like this, because that doesn't make any sense if our eyes are supposed to be down here. I mean, maybe it could if it was rotated, but, like, that's not my goal. And so I'm just doing general approximations, or, like, even sometimes I'll also just add random shapes in, like, the top that are dark, that'll come off the page, and I'll be like, this is the bottom of a shape. I don't even know what shape it is, but let's just pretend it's the bottom, and so I draw, like, lines or something on the bottom. And, like, now here's a branch above us, Whereas this just floating could be anything. So it's, to me, it isn't really about, like, draw the perspective. It's more, because, like, I don't know about you, but once I have, like, a grid, it's really easy, right? I mean, it's, like, not even just a grid, but, like, if you have a box here, and maybe the box has a grid, but not the whole picture, right? And let's pretend this isn't good perspective. Okay, so here's a box, and the box will have some guidelines going up, right, and over, maybe a couple going across, like this. I bet you could take something on here and draw it up and sort of extend it, right? Like, because you can kind of match things, right? And so you're like, okay, well, here's that, and maybe there's going to be a thing over here, because you have enough information to kind of like already do it, right? Like here's a door or here's a window, you know. Like I bet you have, you know, I don't, this isn't that high level, right? Obviously, if you start doing angled stuff, it's a little bit more, you know, because then you're like, well, where does this thing intersect? And you're like, oh no, what's happening? You know? And then you have to like start making choices. And I don't even know if that's gonna look right. That might not. I just eyeballed it. But anyway, the point I'm making is I think most perspective stuff is not super hard. The problem is that when you're doing this kind of thing, sometimes you just don't have enough information. So I kind of do a trick. I have a little sneaky way of doing this where I will just sketch like a ground plane. So I'll put something down here and be like, okay, this is where the ground is. And I kind of get a sense that it's going to go back here too. So there's like a distant line in here. And then I might do like a couple lines underneath this thing to show that like this thing is hanging above us, right? So I'm drawing the underside of this branch. I'll just do some simple lines. And then once it starts like coming together, like this whole space feels like a space, then everything else is easier. So if I draw a big tree like this, I start to understand that I'm looking up at things a little better. And sometimes it's hard to like remember, you know, how you might draw something. But sometimes just some quick guidelines, basically like drawing in that perspective grid, helps. And so I think sometimes it looks like I'm just doing it sort of like intuitively, but really I've already added enough subtle cues in the image to help like to tell myself what I'm looking at. If that makes sense. But I find if you don't have enough clues or cues in your image, then it can start looking... Also, this is a weird tangent right there. But then it can start being really weird, and it's like you're not actually sure where something goes, if that makes sense. And you kind of have to guess, and that's where it starts getting wonky. I don't know. But again, I don't think I'm great at perspective. I probably need to do more precise practice to where I can get the habits down even more accurately. I think ellipses are a big problem of mine, like drawing them accurately in perspective. But yeah. I'm still developing the sense of paying attention to the viewer, so it's nice to hear the breakdown more. The attention to the viewer. True. Yeah, how much do I think about that? I mean, sometimes I'll think about it like right at the start, like how far away is the viewer from us and how big are things relative. But typically it's more of like once I have something established, then everything else, like I know if I'm going to draw another house over here, like, and it's going to be the same size, like how many ways are there to draw it? Like it's going to have the same perspective, you know, if it's the same height, it's going to be roughly there, you know, like at some point you don't have to really think about the viewer, you're just relating it to other things. And so it's more about like finding little relationships of, you know, like, or like I think this is something that I remember as a kid, and it's like if you're drawing a window, trying to like this line's easy, right? The line I drew in orange, that one's easy because you relate it to this line, right? I don't think anybody's going to have a problem with that. Then you draw it down here and you're like, okay, another line. Great, that one's also orange, right? This is going to be, here, I'm going to make a new layer, right? So if it's relating to the orange line, that's pretty easy. But then sometimes you forget, you're like, oh yes, I also need to make these lines kind of being the same, so like I can't go like this, right? Maybe it's 3-point perspective. Great, those are easy too. But then you're like, I'm going to draw the inside of the window frame. Oh, wait, this one's blue, right? But, like, what is this line, right? This line is that line. And so you have... I think as long as you know where to relate it, right? And then you have a line here. I think knowing where to relate things is the tricky part, because sometimes you don't have established lines. Like, the purple line isn't established. and then you have to draw a purple line, and you have to, that's where, to me, it's like this flag goes up and like, oh, pay attention to perspective for this line. And then I do, and then the next time I draw a line, I'm purely just relating it back to the last line I drew, right? So I might get to this stage in my painting, and I draw a line, and this little, right here is like, I haven't drawn a line in this angle yet. This is like, oh, a little flag. And then from here, it's, again, it's autopilot. I grab my lines. And then over here, I'm like, oh, this one needs to be purple again, because now I can relate it. So it's sort of like a, like, I think it's, and it's not easy. It's like, sometimes I'll forget, I'll be drawing stairs or something, and I'm like, drawing these lines, and I'll be like, oh crap, these lines should have been following orange, but I actually made them all go like that, right? In reality, they should have been converging wherever the orange lines converge, which is somewhere over here, right? And so, but that's easy to forget because there's a lot going on. And obviously you may not even be able to tell what these orange lines are yet, but I know that if I extend these here, and then there's going to be little orange lines here that you can't see, and then there's more blue lines, these blue lines to make the stairs. I need to make sure this shape is also stair-shaped, right? So that's the blue surface, that's the blue surface, right? So stuff like that where I'm basically like relating certain lines back to each other in space, and like, okay, well, oh, I want a door here. Well, that's going to be two orange lines and a purple line, or two blue lines and a purple line, Obviously, I don't call them purple, blue, and orange in my head, but I'm just thinking, like, which plane is it going to be on? And also, I don't know what I'm doing here. I'm just, yeah. I don't know. For me, that's, because most of the stuff that I'm drawing isn't, like, super complicated. It's literal boxes and circles, it's... I think it's just when it's all coming together, it looks a little bit more complicated for people. And again, I'm not doing... Accuracy is not my goal here. At this stage, it's, I feel like I have enough of a frame, like, some baseline knowledge of perspective and that kind of thing, to where that's really isn't my primary goal. I think my primary goal is more like, I guess, communication and visual clarity. So, like, it's not so much about accuracy, it's more about, like, does the mood look right? Do the scale kind of look right? I mean, again, that's perspective, but sometimes it's more of like a vibe, like does it look sunny? Well, no. Okay, well, what if I put some bright shapes in here, and I put a bunch of bright stuff just all over? Does that look more sunny? And, like, maybe? And then, so sometimes it's more about that for me, and less about, is the perspective right? I think the only... Oh, sorry. I missed a lot of comments. It's hard for me to think about where I want them to look from, but it almost never comes into play for me till I'm already basically done. I mean, where you want the viewer to look... I mean, they're always looking from behind the camera. Right? They're always looking from... the behind... I mean, I know there's more to it than that, but, like, and maybe this, I don't mean to be intentionally obtuse, but, like, they're always looking from behind the picture frame, right? It's more of, like, where do you mean, like, where do you want the picture frame? Like, do you want it up high or down low? I think this is where, like, starting with your subject is important, because, like, if you know that you want to draw your subject from above, and you're like, here's, the shoulders, the feet, the arms, like, now everything's determined, right? Like, you may not have a clear idea of why you want to draw a character from above. This is a terrible character, by the way. This is not how characters look. But this is supposed to be like the arch of, like, the rib cage, but it looks like a belly. But, like, I think it's okay to go full vibe at the start. I think as long as everything else that relates to it, I mean, I would argue people like you know, Kim Jong-gi, right? He was like the goat at perspective, because he did like the whole 5 point perspective thing. Like, I don't think he was like woke up today and was like, do I think 5 point perspective is the ideal situation for what I'm drawing? No, he just started drawing in 5 point perspective. Everything was in his fisheye view. That's just how he preferred to draw. I don't think he was carefully determining where his camera is. He just started drawing a character, right? That was just full on like he vibe, right? Like, and then once he draws one thing, everything else can relate back to that thing. And so it didn't matter what he drew. He just drew something, and then he relates everything back to what he just drew if he wants. Or if he wants, he can break that and do something different, right? Like, but I think the planning, I mean, I think it's important if you're doing like a storybook and you really want each scene to be as impactful. But I think if you're just, doing a design, doing some sort of early concept or just sketching for fun, I don't think it matters too much where you put the camera. I just think it's more important that once you place the camera somewhere, the lines are consistent, right? You don't want to like warp reality on accident. I mean, you got to meet him. He was so sweet. He literally was just a machine. Yeah, yeah. It's always cool to see that, but it's like, to me, I think at one point he even said like what he does is like a party trick. And I think I understand that, because sometimes I feel like what I'm doing is a party trick. Again, it's not the same. I'm not comparing myself to him in any way, other than to say that like that same automatic process exists to some degree. Obviously, a lot less skillfully for me, but like I recognize that, right? It's like it's almost like a, if you, I don't like the term meditation, but sort of, if you sort of be, what's the word, mindful of what you're doing, and like what you're thinking and how you're doing what you're doing, I think it's pretty clear that like we all do that to some degree, even if we don't realize it. It's like, I don't know. Also, what am I doing here? Let's just play around with color. Let's slap in some color. I remember him responding to someone asking about materials and basically saying, I use what's on hand and everything else just comes from practice. Yeah. I like that attitude because because it confirms what I already believe, and that makes my brain happy. Doesn't mean it's right, but it certainly feels good when I already believe that. But yeah, I think that stuff is, yeah. Yeah, paint with what's on hand. Materials aren't that important. Like, again, sometimes they will be. If somebody commissioned you for something that, like, this is gonna go in a museum for 1,000 years. Like, yeah, okay, make sure that your paints are, your paper is high quality and your colors are, gonna survive the test of time, right? Like, you don't want your pigments to fade, and, like, yeah, there's gonna be things that you're going to pay attention to depending on the demand. But if you're just like sketching for yourself, like, it's not going to affect the look. Not really. Light fastness, yeah. Like, it's, I don't think that your materials are going to drastically change how your painting looks. It might change it a little bit, but it's not enough. It's, of all the things that matter, suddenly we're talking about this. We're talking about some tiny 1% issue that basically doesn't matter, and if you're worrying about it, you're either super duper pro and being paid lots of money for it or something, or you should probably instead be focusing over here, because this is the more, that's the stuff that's going to actually change how your art looks. This little tiny thing, sure, it's a thing, it exists, it's a piece of the pie, but let's not kid ourselves into thinking that that's going to be the deal breaker for whether or not you are proud of your own art, The only time it matters when you are trying for something super... Yeah, I mean, if you have specific demands, you know? Like, yeah, maybe if you're making art for someone and you want it to last, or you are making art, I mean, again, maybe you, if it's, maybe you know it's gonna go in a portfolio. Sure, maybe splurge an extra buck or two on some paper, you know? But, like, if you're just doodling, like, who gives a crap? Like, yes, maybe your doodle will also turn into something amazing. And then you'll be like, dang, I sure wish I had that archival paper and perfect inks and stuff, but, like, so what? Make it again or something, because you just made it once. I don't know, at some point, it's not that precious. I mean, it's precious in that you made it, I guess. Or it's precious to you, but it's, yeah, I don't know. Infinite Wumbo, how's it going? But yeah, I'm like on the whole range of, you know, from materials matter a whole bunch to they don't matter at all. I'm somewhere over here. I'm not on. They do matter. They obviously affect stuff, right? The brush you uses affects the look of the painting that you're gonna do. You know, the medium that you uses matters. It's going to maybe it doesn't matter, but it affects the outcome visually. But not in like a better or worse way, just it changes it, right? Obviously painting with crayon looks different than digital painting, right? They just look different. And digital painting with a flat round brush, with an airbrush, is gonna look different than painting with only a bird brush, right? Like, you're just never gonna get the same look with this brush as you do with this brush. They look different. But it doesn't mean, but like, that's not what we're talking about, right? Like, we don't, like, that's just a matter of preference, of like, how does it look? But then in terms of, is it good? Or is it appealing? That's a matter of skill. That's different than the brush, right? At least in my mind. It's a very different question. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess taste is a thing, you know, like, and that's part of your preferences. I don't know. I mean, taste can be developed, though, right? So, like, even taste, to some degree, I think, is skill. I know that's a weird way to frame it, but I think taste is skill. To some degree. Because you make choices, right? What do you spend time consuming? Which direction do you want to go in? Right? Like, I know, like, I might have no taste for, like, you know, what flowers should go in a bouquet, right? But if I know that if I spend more time studying flowers and bouquet making and, you know, horticulture, or spend time around florists, like, I can absolutely understand and learn different perspectives to where my taste can develop for making nice flower, you know, which flowers to pick into a flower arrangement and why, right? Maybe I learn about the historical significance of flowers. Maybe I learn about current trends. Like, and I don't have to like those current trends, and that's part of taste. But the more I understand, I think you will appreciate things more, I think. If you or you can not appreciate them. Maybe you think all of those trends are garbage and people today just don't know what they're doing. But again, I think some sort of soul searching or whatever can sort of change how you view things. And I mean, again, you may not know where you're going to end up, but it's definitely a thing that you cultivate. Like, maybe it's a little bit blind, right? Like, you're blindly cultivating your taste, but it's very clear taste develops. You aren't born with it, not necessarily, right? A kid isn't just like, I understand, you know, like, I don't know, if you haven't seen something, I don't know. I don't think it's, and I'm sure my opinion on this can change or will change. I just think that taste is a weird concept because it seems like it's just a big mix of everything, kind of. I don't know. Taste being paired with preferences? Yeah, but your preferences change, right? I mean, I know when I was a kid, I loved the art, the line art in the cover of a PlayStation game or a PS1 game called Saga Frontier, one of my favorite games. I love the art. I still like the art because, I have fond memories of it, but that's not my preference in terms of visual aesthetic now. Like, I like it in that it still looks good to me, but like if you were to give me pencils and say go make art or just any tool I wanted, I would have gravitated towards the pencils and the line art and, colored pencils and trying to replicate that style. That was my preference. Now it's not. Now I have different tastes. I have, my tastes are probably more shaped by things like Magic the Gathering, right? Just because that's a thing that I've played a lot. I've, consumed a lot of it. I've a lot of the artists that I paint and a lot of the artists that I interact with are Magic the Gathering artists adjacent. So like there's just it's kind of rubbed off on me, and I have like it's definitely built its way into my views of what I like and why I like them. Like I could tell you why I like them. It's not some unknowable concept even. Like I love the world building. I love that it's, Magic the Gathering art it's more than a sum of its parts, right? It's not just a bunch of individual art, but it builds a world, and I think that's super cool. Yeah, like there's lots of reasons, but anyway. So yeah, I guess my hot take is that I think taste is... I mean, I think there's probably some things that are just unknowable about it. That's like saying personality is acquired, and, to some degree it is. But also, to some degree, there's probably other parts of the recipe. Although I think taste is even more acquired than that, because... But yeah. Hey, Sir Cheesy! How are you? Welcome, welcome. Like, I bet you, if I got a job, just hypothetically, at Magic the Gathering, right, at Wizards of the Coast, hypothetically, and I was working on the newest space set, so it's like a sci-fi set as opposed to fantasy, and I was in charge of doing creature design or something, which I would never be in charge of, but again, if I were, and I was in charge of doing creature design for this fantasy set, and I started doing, I'm motivated, I'm pumped up, and so now I'm doing research into sci-fi and creatures. I bet you if I spent, 4 years on that project, I would come out like a creature sci-fi person, right? Like my tastes, like maybe I would still sprinkle some other stuff in there, but like my knowledge base would have pushed me in that direction because that's what I consume my time with. That's what I consume my energy. Maybe I did it initially, purely on the motivation of money, but over time, as I learn, I can start appreciating it more. And maybe it's like, maybe I didn't understand it, early on, like as a kid, and so I discounted it and I didn't like it. But now that I'm forcing myself to actually pay attention, now I'm slowly building an appreciation for it. So I think that happens all the time. Good me, I'm doing well. My day is going good. Just rambling about preferences and how they change. Very, very philosophical over here. Totally valid. Yeah, I mean, again, yeah, I think I'm starting to go on a rant here, and I think my rant is more that, like, I think a lot of times in art, people talk about it like it's this, your preferences and your tastes and your interests, they're all these unknowable things. So you just need to follow it without even, even though you could never know it, you just still follow it. And I don't agree with that. I think they are understandable. You can Like, I don't think it's as mysterious as we make it out to be. And yeah, maybe we don't technically know, and it's all, in hindsight, we can maybe guess at it, but in the moment, we don't know. But that doesn't mean, like, on a, like on a science-y level, I feel like we understand quite a bit of that. You're a tangent enabler. I like it, though. I like it, especially this topic, because so much of art is sort of just going on autopilot and shutting off your brain and doing things. I actually had this conversation with a coworker fairly recently about, like, uh, being on autopilot. What's the tea of choice? Today is Constant Comet. Is that what it's called? It's basically Earl Grey, but instead of bergamot, it's orange. It's the same. It's black tea with orange, I think. I think that's what it is. And maybe a tiny bit of, like, some other spice. It's basically Earl Grey. It's citrusy black tea. But anyway, I had this conversation with a coworker the other day about, like, being on autopilot and just going and doing things without thinking. And then the second you realize that you're doing it and you try to think about it, you can't do it anymore. So, like, there's this pin pad or this keypad that I have to log into to open up a door, because it's like a security. It's not a security. It's just a big metal door with a keypad, right? And I have to beep, 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 press the buttons. But there was one day where I was holding something instead of using my right hand, which I normally do. I was holding something with my right hand, so I was trying to enter it with my left hand. The second I did that, I was like, oh crap, what's the combination? I can't remember the combination. I couldn't remember because the pattern was for my right hand. It's just like, it's a pattern. But this hand wasn't used to that motion, and so I couldn't sign in. And I'm like, how do I open the door? I can't get in the door. I can't do my job because I'm doing it with the wrong hand. And now that I'm thinking about it, I realize I don't know it. And so I had to, like, go backtrack. I had to, like, reverse engineer. Okay, I think it was like a couple things, but I switched the arms. I went back to my right hand, and then I had to, like, think about, like, okay, if I were to walk up as a fresh start and enter the pad, how would I do it? And it was still hard because I was already thinking about what was the number instead of just going on autopilot. So I had to, like, literally walk back around the corner, switch things to my other hand, walk back up as if it was like, I'm brand new that day, just walking in for the first time in the morning, and then I can just punch it in. And then that time I actually paid attention when I was pressing so that I remembered the number. But it was like my brain short-circuited because it was trying to observe what I was doing on autopilot. And it's like, oh crap, I don't know what I'm doing. And I think so much of our life is like that. We just do a thing. It's like you go into, like, you're executing code, It's like, here's the code for getting up and going to the bathroom, you stand up, you move, you walk to where you need to go, and you do the things you need to do, and then you wash your hands, and you just do the thing. You there's a whole cycle. Or I'm gonna go get a cup of water. You just mindlessly walk open up the cupboard, grab a cup if you need, or whatever, and you put it under the faucet or pour something. Like, it's such autopilot. You're mixed hands, so you've never had that problem? There's nothing in life that you do with, like, one hand normally, and then another hand, like, so, like, if you're gonna brush your teeth, like, because, like, I know people who are ambidextrous, and I'm using quotes there, in that they use both hands, but most of the time, certain activities are mostly done with certain hands. So, like, brushing their teeth might be a right-handed thing, but eating will be a left-handed thing, right? So they have, like, they're perfectly capable of doing things with both hands, but they still have, like, a preference and a habit for which hands they use for what. You don't have that at all? Mixed-handed, not ambidextrous. I don't know what mixed-handed is then. Huh, very interesting. But anyway, you're an outlier then, not talking about you. But yeah, I feel like for most people, there are things, and it's not just about hands, it's literally just like, for example, when I was a kid, this is the other goof up that I remember. When I was a kid, every day I would get off the bus from school, grab the mail, and walk, I don't know, 100 yards or 200 yards. It was quite a walk, quite the trek down this gravel lane up to my house, holding my mail. Sometimes I'd put it in my backpack. Most of the time I would hold it because when I put it in my backpack, I always forgot to take it out. So I would hold the mail, walk down to my house, open, grab the key, open up the door, set the mail on the counter, and go on with my day, right? Um, but there was one day where, like, if any part of that cycle is disrupted, maybe I get distracted, or I stop halfway through and I'm talking with the neighbor, suddenly it's like that routine has broken, and I will be much more likely to forget to put the mail away, right? Or something, right? Or maybe I set down the mail to be like, "Oh, I need to help a kid out of the creek or something." I don't know why there's a kid in the creek in this story, but like, maybe as I'm walking down this, I should be drawing this, but so I would get off the bus, right? Bus is here, it's in yellow. I would walk down a very, very long path, right? Let's just make it a very long, windy path. It wasn't really windy, right? Here's the long, windy path, and then I would arrive at my home. Here's my home. It doesn't look like a home, but here it is. I don't know why I drew it like this. Anyway, there's my house. But anyway, but let's say, but yeah, so I'd be holding my mail the whole time. But if I were to stop here halfway at the neighbor's house, and I were to, say, set my mail down on the ground for a moment and do something, suddenly it's like that routine, and now I just continue the routine and I'd leave it. But anyway, one day I was doing this. I was having my mail. I went all the way home, unlocked the door. I got the key from the garage. It was in its secret hiding place. Got the key from the garage, unlocked the front door, went inside. But I'm like, I'm really thirsty. Before I put the mail away, I'm going to grab a drink. And so I open up the fridge, pour myself some juice, put the mail on the counter, put the juice back, drink, whatever, do all the things. And then my mom came home about 2 hours later and she's like, "You left the juice out." And I'm like, "No, I didn't." She's like, "Yeah, you did. It's on the counter." I'm like, "Okay." So, and then she's like, "And the mail's in the fridge." So I had put the mail in the fridge, apparently, because I just, like, that routine got flip-flopped, and instead of bringing the mail home and doing the thing, I instead decided that I'm going to circumnavigate this routine. Like, again, it's just like it happened like once in my life where this goofs up, but like that type of thing, I feel like we all have these sort of like autopilot things. I mean, everything. You drive to work and you're like, I didn't even notice all this stuff. I was just, it's like, how much of the hour-long road trip can you recall if you're the driver? Like, probably not much. You're just not really paying attention to most things. Putting the mail in the fridge, OMG. Hey, Titan, how's it going? Yeah, I mean, it's silly, but, like, it's one of those things where 99% of the time, nothing goes wrong. Until something changes and you're just still on autopilot. And I think most people have a pretty good switch that flips that says, "Oh, I'm not on autopilot, let's pay attention." But every once in a while, it goes wrong. Anyway. Switching that flip, is that what I said? Maybe. Flip the switch. Wait, who can't open jars with both hands? I mean, it's certainly not as like, takes more effort to do it one way than the other, but like, okay, hold on, let's see. Mixed-handed is like you predominantly write with one hand, but for example, predominantly open a jar with the other. Oh, gotcha. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, right? So you would still have your autopilot routine. So like when you go to brush your teeth, you're gonna brush your teeth with a certain hand. You're just doing that, right? And you aren't thinking about the motion that you're doing because it just comes naturally because you've done it a million times, right? So yeah, I mean that falls exactly into what I'm talking about. Like, yeah, I would be even with ambidextrous. People who are ambidextrous will still most of the time like use a certain hand if they're doing the same activity. So like they're not just like writing one word, switching hands, writing the next, switching hands. Like even if they could, they're not doing that, right? Because that requires way more like mental effort to like make that switch. Like sure, you could train yourself to do it quickly and without thinking, but like most people who are ambidextrous are not constantly switching hands, right? They're unless they're doing like a party trick. Have you ever lost a thought? Go back to a place where you were previously and remember that thought? Yeah, yeah, or like yeah, so I mean that's very similar to like yeah, I think I've had that. Or like yeah, you try to like retrace your steps but mentally like let me pretend that I just walked in the door for the first time. Like for example, if you have a thought that like when I get home I need to tell, or I'm just using like my childhood self as an example, but like let's say I was a kid and I was gonna go in and tell my mom something. Um, or maybe you're walking in after work and you're gonna tell your roommate or your partner something, and you're like, I need to remember to tell them a thing, right? And so you're thinking about this thing all the way up until you get home. But once you get home, something is happens. Maybe you open up the door and there's like a bunch of people running around. You're like, what's going on? Why is it, like, oh, it's chaos. And then like you forget what you're like, oh, I need to tell you something, but I can't remember it. But then you like, oh, let me reset. Let me pretend that I'm arriving back home for the day. I'm going to open up the door and I was going to tell you, and then you remember what it is. It's like you had to go back in time mentally to be like, let me put myself in that state of mind so that I can remember what I was thinking. Yeah, that's totally a thing. It's wacky. But yeah, no. Yeah, I love this stuff. It's always fascinating. Have you seen people who actually draw with both hands and do it very well? I know, like, Karl Kapinski has taught himself to draw with two pencils at the same time. But again, it's like a party trick. He doesn't just draw. It's not like from a kid, he's been drawing with both hands at the same time. That's just the way he does it. No, he intentionally taught himself to do that. And, it's not like he does it better than he does with one hand. It's harder and more effortful, and he still draws better with one hand than he does with both. But yeah, he is capable of drawing one picture with two pencils at the same time, right? Because he's taught himself to do it. And it's pretty cool. It's a neat thing that he's taught himself to do. But to act like he just does it, like, have you seen these people who do this? Well, sure, it's like I've seen people who can juggle 7 bowling pins at a time. They've taught themselves to do this. It's not like, yeah. So I think a lot of things like this, the way we talk about them makes it sound like they just like, what a bunch of freaks of nature who can just do this thing. Hey, Rosenthorn, how's it going? Can't imagine all those years they must have took to do that. Yeah, I mean, it helps if you already know how to draw, because you know what to focus on. I thought just today I got caught in the Instagram algorithm for a while, and I was watching shorts for like probably 10 minutes or something. But there was some short of like a person with a soccer ball, juggling a soccer ball, and juggling in the term of not like with your hands, but with your feet, right? Doing all these fancy tricks, balancing the ball on their foot, and then, doing a flip or whatever, and then catching it back on their other foot. Anyway, I kid you not, one of the comments said, how do you even discover you can do this? Really? Do you think they just woke up one day and discovered they can do this? No, they practice, dang it. Like, come on, people. You don't wake up and discover you can juggle a soccer ball. you think it's interesting and fun and cool and you want to try it, and then you fail a lot, and slowly you have little successes and it's exciting and you want to get better, and then you get better at it. Like, that's not, you don't wake up one day and realize that you are a world-class juggler. Come on. But anyway, and every single time that there are like, there's an entire subreddit of this called Next Effing Level. And I seriously, like, every single post, there is someone with more or less that same comment. How do you even discover you can do this crazy thing? Like, is that how you think the world works? You wake up and discover you can do a crazy feat of skill? Like, it blows my mind that there are, and it's again, this is not an uncommon type of like inquiry, and it almost upsets me that there are people who seemingly think that people who can do amazing things woke up one day and discovered they can do this. Like, how different is your worldview than mine for you to believe that? Like, what else do you believe that is that wild, you know? Are there other things that are equally as wacky that you think about the world that, like... Yeah, anyway. I think society... so Titan Mesozoic on YouTube says, I think society is very on with, oh, it must be talent, instead of showing up to do the hard... I mean, yeah, I think it's that, but I also think it's more of like a, you know, maybe early on in life you've convinced yourself that surely these people don't just maybe enjoy it more than me and have put more time in and more effort, and, you know, when they fail, maybe they actually still can find some pleasure in the activity that is not, whereas you're just like gonna quit because it sucks. Like, I think I think we all have a tendency to sort of convince ourselves that, like, they're just, you know, like, yeah, maybe it was their work or whatever, but, like, you know, I'm not like that. And at some point, it's easy. I think it's just easier to convince yourself that, like, it's not your own failing or that you chose to not do that. When you see people do amazing things, like, it's not, I mean, again, it's not a failure if you don't choose to do something. It's just, but, like, there is sort of it's like a shifting of responsibility from, instead of like, I've chosen to spend my time in other ways and they've chosen to spend their time in that way. Instead of admitting that, it's more of like, wow, that person's something else, you know? But anyway, I think that's a pet peeve of mine, is when I see people make that comment. Like, how do you wake up one day and decide and realize you can juggle knives with your feet? You don't. You don't ever wake up and say, I can juggle knives with my feet. At no point is that the thought in someone's head. Right? Or with art, right? You don't wake up one day and like, I can draw with both hands. No, it might be like, I want to try it, and like, wow, that's really hard. I want to keep trying it. And then you keep trying it, and maybe you tell Gregorio Samsa, I don't know who that is. Sounds like an anime character. Who is Gregorio Samsa? I'm not saying juggling knives with your feet is impossible. I'm saying the process of getting to that stage doesn't happen in a one big jump, right? It probably started with, like, I can balance a ball on my foot, you know? Like, look, it not very well, but, like, sometimes. And then you're like, maybe I can toss a ball from one foot and catch it on the other foot. Look, I'm juggling balls with my feet. And again, you're not gonna, that's a long time too, but, you know, it's a step. And then from there, you're like, maybe I can juggle something else with my feet, like, I don't know, sticks, and I can catch them between my toes, you know? Like, oh, what a cool, like, okay, I can do this thing, again, not very well, and it sucks, I can only toss one at a time, but then eventually you can start doing more complicated things, and you keep spending time, and you're like, okay, I think I have precision to like maybe I'm gonna use a butter knife and it's not gonna hurt me if I cut myself, you know. And then at some point you're like, I'm gonna get up on a stage and do this and like turn it into a routine at a talent contest or something, and like I'm gonna use fake knives, but they look dangerous and sharp, and then you use fake knives for a long time, and maybe after 5 years you're like, I'm gonna step it up a notch and use a real knife, you know? Like, it might be a huge process. Anyway, my point is, it doesn't happen all at once. It's a skill. I don't know how I went on a rant about juggling knives with your toes, but there we go. We did it. It's official. I can rant about anything. Also, I don't know what's happening with this brush. And I'm curious who Gregorio Samsa is, and why can he juggle knives with his toes. Hello, Chaos Kitsune. How's it going? Here's some clouds in the sky. The metamorphosis main character. I don't know what that is, but okay. But yeah, I mean, I think there's probably a little bit of this being perpetuated by media, although I don't think that's the big reason. I think mostly things like that, even though you do see this in like, you know, all the savant type detective shows where like these people seemingly are just amazing. Actually, I think the only one of the shows that I really like for this is the show Psych. So I know the show has its issues for sure, but the Psych is like a comedy detective show kind of where the main character has the powers of observation basically, and he plays it off like he's a psychic. But they actually show like flashbacks to his childhood of how his dad was like an old school police officer, and he would like train his kid, the main character, to be observant. So, you know, they do all the things like sitting in a diner and the dad would like quiz him on random things around him. So, like, you know, it very clearly showed from a young age he was being trained to be observant, right? And then as like adult him, he's playing it off like he just has this ability and it comes naturally, and it's comedic. We're in on the joke. We know that he doesn't have this. He knows it. One of his best friends does, but everybody else in the show is unaware. Um, but like that show, I think is one of the more accurate portrayals of like character doing crazy thing, and it didn't come naturally. Um, Whereas I think a lot of shows just make it seem like, oh, what a quirky character who's really good at this thing, and like it doesn't ever look like they practice. It looks like it comes so easy, and they never get it wrong, and you know, like. So yeah, I've always liked that kind of portrayal of it. But yeah, I think most of these portrayals though don't come about because like I don't think they maybe they do fuel the misconceptions a little bit, but I think mostly it's more that people have these ideas and they like to rationalize themselves and they fantasize about those things, and so people write shows like that because it's fun and entertaining to us, and then we consume it. So I think it's more of like the opposite, not that they perpetuate the stereotypes. Maybe. I think the anime manga Blue Period. I've heard people recommend that. I should watch it just because people keep recommending it. It sounds not entertaining, to be honest, but I feel like it's relevant enough. The only thing I know about it is that well, maybe I don't know this. I think it pushes the tortured artist thing pretty hard, right? Maybe it doesn't. I don't know. I've never seen it, so I don't know. Everything that it looks like it's all about like the tortured artist and making it seem like it's this painstakingly awful experience to get good, which I think is an equally annoying stereotype. Like that you have to grind and hustle all the time, which I think is not true. I don't know, it just doesn't sound enjoyable to watch. It probably is good, and I should give it a chance. I don't think so. Oh, maybe not then. Okay, never mind. It very might not. I have no idea. I've never seen it. I'm probably just asserting an opinion or an assumption. Or stating an assumption like it's fact. Anyway, this is kind of a fun cloud. A giant poofy cloud. I mean, what's not to like about giant poofy clouds? I do wonder, though, what if I take the same giant poofy cloud and just play around with the shape a bit? So, like, what if I make this cloud like this, and I put, like, a gap in it? Or this cloud has, like, another little shape up here. Also, where's the light coming from? I guess over here, right? When I watched, it says Titan Mesozoic. When you watch the Blue Period, it didn't really give off the torture artist at all for me. More of a guy seeing art and deciding to go all in. Gotcha. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, it might be good. I do wonder how much it aligns with, like... Because I do have some pretty strong opinions on this stuff, so I'm curious how, like, triggering it would be for me. Or... or if it would be something that I'm like, oh, that's a nice portrayal of it. I don't know. It's something about it that doesn't sound... I don't know what it is. I think when it's a show about an issue or like about a thing that's trying to be a portrayal of an artist, like I don't think I have an issue with the shows themselves. I think sometimes I take issue with like the fandoms who treat it like that is the experience of all artists or something, when obviously it's not going to be. And like maybe it's probably the experience of some artists, so it could be a nice, like, you know, people always talk about it in context of, you know, look at this like, here's a really good portrayal of some art experience that some people have. I don't know if that makes sense, but like, I don't know. Sometimes that bothers me a little bit because like artists' experience are so varied, and there's so many stereotypes. I think if it breaks a stereotype, though, it's quite interesting because then it could be like a neat take. And it sounds like it is. It does sound like it does that because people seem to reference it in topic of like it's not talent, it's skill kind of thing. And so if that's what it's advocating for, I feel like I'd be on board with it. Kind of just carve out some of these shapes and make them interesting. Maybe this one goes super far back. Maybe this one is larger. Oops. But yeah, has anybody else ever seen the anime The Blue Period? Or maybe it's just called Blue Period? That's sort of what Blue Period is all about, and finding the joy in doing something? Okay. Do you think someone making art deep in the woods never seen by anyone is considered an artist nowadays? Yeah, but I'm not sure why it matters if they're considered an artist. This is another topic I could ramble about. I have thoughts. I don't think it matters if someone is or isn't considered an artist by other people. I don't think it matters at all. I don't think their art suddenly has value because they are in the category of people who you consider to be an artist. I don't think it's more valuable than somebody who isn't doing art but still making things. Um, there's a lot of art. I mean, it can matter deeply to the person making the art. I don't need to care about it. I'm not going to value something simply because you call you it's art. I think a lot of art is meaningless to me, and I either don't understand it, or if I do, I still don't care about it, or I think it negatively impacts the world, or lots of things about art I don't like. And so I don't need to like or appreciate art simply because it exists. But similarly, some stuff probably isn't considered art by most people that's super valuable. So I don't know. I just don't feel like art is a word that elevates something. Like if you have two things, you know, object A and object B, an object B is art. That's not how you spell art. And object B is, or A is not art. Like, is this one inherently more valuable? Assuming they're slightly different things anyway? Like, no, you judge them based on what they do. Does this one make you feel stuff and add to the world and, you know, provoke thought and tell something about a lived experience that you care about or something? Sure, it's great. Does this one provoke thought and tell you about lived experience and make you feel stuff? If so, it's great. Who cares if it's art? If this one is bad for the world and spreading hatred, I don't care if it's art. It's garbage, right? It's and this thing might not be art, but it might be awesome for the world. So I don't really ever know why it matters if things are and aren't art. I feel like people use art as like an insult for like, I don't want to explain why I don't like something, so I'm just going to call it not art. Like, there's an ugly sculpture in my town, and it's really stupid. But therefore it's not art. Not art, it's garbage. No, it's art, I just don't like it. You know? So yeah, I don't know why it matters. It's kind of, I think it's like the weakest argument somebody can have when it comes to, like, dismissing something. Like, it bugs me a little bit when people who are anti-AI, like myself, I am not anti, but I have a lot of things I don't like about it. Let's put it that way. But it bugs me a little bit when people who don't like AI, who I more or less agree with, will say, "Oh, you're calling yourself an artist." It's like, is that really the issue here? Like, come on now. Whether or not they're artists doesn't change anything about what they're doing, right? Like, let's criticize what they're actually doing, or criticize the output of it, or criticize something about it, rather than just dismissing it because, oh, that's not art. Who cares? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. It doesn't really matter. I don't think that's up for you to decide. Like, for me, for example, you can tell me if what I do is art. I don't care. I'm going to do it anyway. It doesn't need to be art. In fact, I could probably make more money if it wasn't art. Because art is kind of not exactly a thing people pay lots for. Calling it art might even cheapen it, to be honest. But that's a different issue. Yeah, I don't think of art as like a word that elevates something. The metaphor of a tree falling in the woods without anyone hearing it explores the nature of reality versus perception. It refers to whether an event actually occurs if no one is around to experience it. Yeah, but you said someone making experience in the woods and nobody is seen. It's still experienced by the person. I mean, art is always like a thing done by a person and determined to be art by others. Like, it's always been other people who determine whether something's art or not. whether or not it is art should be irrelevant to the person actually making the art. Artists for centuries have been being told that their art isn't art by others, only then to end up becoming sort of being determined to be art later on because, oh, look, people cared about it or something. Like, who cares if it is or isn't? I think that, I don't know, to me it's just like one of the most time-wasting... I mean, I guess philosophically it can be interesting, but like in any practical sense, it is completely a useless thing to even spend time worrying about. Because it doesn't affect anyone in any way. That's my take. So yeah. In short, it doesn't matter if it's art. Who cares? What changes? Let's pretend it is. Let's pretend it isn't. Do both sides of the argument. What changes? Nothing. So let's not ever... This is why, like, whenever... I mean, again, anytime AI comes up, there's always somebody like, AI artists, they think they're artists. They call that art. Sure, why not? Let's call it art. Let's call it not art. Who cares? What changes? They still made the thing they made, or they didn't make the thing they didn't make. You know, like... Just what it does is important. What do you mean? I don't think so. Nothing about it's important. I'm gonna call Apple phone art now. Sure, do it. A lot of people do. I mean, artists designed it. They designed the aesthetics of it. I always thought I need to have a certain level of skill to call myself an artist. No, not at all. If you make pictures, or I mean, I don't like using the definition in the definition, but if you make art, you're an artist. And if you draw stuff, I think you're making... Again, who cares if it is or isn't art? Draw the things you want to draw. Make the stuff you want to make. And what is determined to be art probably will change over time culturally and you know, depending on who's viewing it and in what context. But, like, yeah, this doesn't matter. Yeah, it does something. Yeah, and whether, you know, it does some good stuff, does some bad stuff. I think there's a lot more bad stuff it does than the good stuff. I think there's points to criticize it, but dismissing it as not art isn't ever an actual criticism of it. It's like a nothing burger criticism, you know? It's like, it's a criticism for people who can't actually articulate what they don't like about it. It's the most lazy form of communication I've ever experienced. Saying, oh, that's not art. Okay. So what don't you like about it? Like, let's actually talk. Like, can we get past that? I don't know. I mean, I think there is, like, I remember reading a book called Art and Fear, I think it is. And in that book, I think it's this book. It might be a different book. They basically say this super contentious... Maybe it's not that book. I'm just going to pretend it is. They say this extremely contentious statement that if you make art for money, it ceases to be art. One, I don't think I agree, but also who cares? But I kind of do agree, right? And I kind of agree in that, like, it does change what you're doing, but it doesn't make it worse, right? I think the undertone is that, like, therefore it becomes lesser. I don't think it becomes lesser. Some cases it becomes more. It's not worse. It could be better. Sure, maybe it's not the same thing, and now that you're motivated by other reasons. And I think there is an argument to be made that, like, illustration is, you know, you're making a product, right? You're not making art, you're making a product. But again, who cares? It's awesome. Illustrating is cool. We call them artists, but... So yeah, they're making art. But, like, it is different. Like illustration or concept art or anything for print where you're creating a product and the product's goals are above the creators. So like it's more important that this thing is like other people are determining whether or not it's good, not the artist, right? It's not about the artist making it. It's about the product, right? So AI would be a good example of this, where AI is about the end product, and therefore it wouldn't qualify as art, right? I think that's a reasonable view, but like, who cares, right? Illustration is a thriving, well, maybe not thriving. I think it's a thriving business, right? Designers thrive. There's no shortage. Like, it's still a thing that is in demand. It's a useful thing. It's good. It's useful and important for society. Like, whether or not you call it art is irrelevant. It does these things. It makes people happy. The people who make it like it. They take great joy from it. They might view it as art, but even if they don't, who cares, right? I think Fang Zhu has said many times that he doesn't think of concept art as art. He thinks of it as design. And design is for a function, it's for a purpose. It's not an expression of him. It's a trying to meet a demand for a project. Like, if the project that, but again, you don't have to agree with that. But I think his point and the point that I'm trying to make is, like, it doesn't matter. Designs have purposes. The people do them, like it. If they enjoy it, you enjoy it, I enjoy it, we all enjoy it. Who gives a crap what we call it? Call it design, call it not art, call it art. It doesn't matter. It is what it is, and we can talk about what it is, but using this other term to describe it is so pointless. It's especially the most nebulous term ever. I don't know. That's my ramble. I feel like it's almost a conversation stopper. So yeah. It's one of the topics that if you even mention it, I will, on stream, I have to go into a rant. Because it's such a, just a conversation killer. But I think in practical terms, like, if someone told me your stuff's not art, I'd be like, okay. Like, I enjoy making it. I feel like I'm, I'm expressing my interests. I'm demonstrating some sort of knowledge or skill. I'm having fun. Maybe other people get joy from looking at it. Doesn't need to be art. It still does all those things. Nothing changes by you calling it not art. Nothing is lost. Nothing is gained. It is just what it is. Art is one that is nebulous true. I mean, maybe. I don't know. I mean, I use the term art all the time to describe things. And I think most of the time people can understand what we're talking about. But it's an extremely unnuanced take on it. Sims Art, hello, we're getting raided by Sims Art. Sims Art, thank you so much for the raid again. That's like 2 raids in a week. What the heck? Sims Art, here, art tax. Drop the art tax. If you guys don't know Sims Art, they are amazing. I'm gonna go to Instagram and type in Sims Art because they're great, and you guys should know who they are if you don't already. Heyo, as always. Heyo yourself. What were you working on today? Actually, I'll only share your work if you don't have anything new to share. I'd love to see what you were working on. Say hi to SimsArt. Says Titan Mesozoic on YouTube. Hi. But yeah, what were you up to today? And if anybody coming in with the raid would like to share some art of theirs, also, you can do that. Trying to clutch the last illustration for this month. Ooh, when you say the last illustration for this month, I've got to know, how many finished pieces do you feel like you do in a month? Because you say the last, which makes it feel like it's a bit. Now I've got to know. Like, this month was actually insane. Okay. mind-boggling also. Like insane in like the quantity, like you were crazy productive, or insane in some other way. Also, for those who, I guess I could give an introduction myself. I'm just painting random stuff right now. I don't have a goal in mind other than just make things. But I can show you what I normally do. I normally sketch out lots of ideas, come up with ideas on stream, start with a blank canvas, just paint stuff, have fun, and then we as a community, we vote on a thumbnail, and then I work on it till the end of stream. So this one was just a sunset painting that we did. Well, this was a thumbnail, and then we turned it into then we continued painting on it till the end of stream, and so every stream I try to do like a new painting like this, where we just, you know, just mostly fantasy landscapes, different types of things. I don't know, let's go find something else. Over here, maybe. Here's some more. I think we selected this one. This one changed a lot. Actually, I like this painting too. Maybe we'll copy that one for today, because I need some more paintings that we might work on. But I think this is the one we did on this particular stream, and it actually changed a ton, because it ended up looking like this. So, we do a lot of environments, fantasy stuff, castles, towers, cottages, villages, anything with some architecture, some not architecture, some city stuff, just stuff like that. Sometimes there's people. Most of the time, the people are blobs, very blobby people. Look at those! Look at those people! If you wanted to learn how to draw people, you've come to the right place. They have a head, a couple feet sometimes, and sometimes an arm or two. Yeah, we sure do draw our people here. But yeah. Oh, and flamingos. Wait, that one is sick? Oh, thank you. Whoa, the colors are so pretty. Thanks. Maria Prism, hello, welcome. And Tikoyaki. Also, I had a few commissions yet. I had to finish like 10 to 11 drawings in 1 month. Dang. I can't imagine doing a drawing, especially with like, I mean, I don't want to like, what's the term they use? Glaze you up or something? But like, the quality that you put out with your art, like, I don't know how long it takes you to do a piece, but I imagine it's not super quick. But yeah, so look at Sims's art. Look at their art. Like, look at the just the level of detail, the level of like the composition, everything about it, the design of the characters and the shapes, and there's so much good stuff, I feel like, in all of it. Like, just even a scene like this, I mean, there is so much going on. Little story, the way the cat, like, even things like the tail going behind this, and like the amount of like overlapping shapes, and there's just so much going on. It's amazing, and I love it. You know, the cat coming out of the corner here, which makes a nice, like, adds a lot of depth to have all these overlapping shapes, and like, so even though it's like a straight on, I don't, it's just the skill and the everything is amazing. Anyway, go follow Sims art. Yeah, Sims is amazing. And they paint live on Twitch. I know, obviously, because they just rated us. I don't know why I said that, like you guys didn't know. But anyway, I am always, my mind is always blown. But yeah, so we're just doodling, and we'll probably pick a painting here in a little bit to work on. Although I don't know what's happening here. This one needs some help. But anyway. Titan Mesozoic says, I'm running out of pages in my sketchbook. No. I mean, time to get a new sketchbook. And also, yay? Like, isn't that I guess that's a bad thing, but also a good thing, because that shows you that you are sketching a lot. Thank you so much. Yeah, no worries, and thank you for bringing your community over. All right, I'm gonna draw something, hopefully that, I don't know, maybe like something green. Lots of green, maybe green and pink, because we already have some pink in here. So like something, maybe we put some, ooh, maybe like a darker green with like pink magical stuff. I like to just start with color and play around and with color and mood and sort of try to get some sense of like a vibe or a mood, you know, where you can maybe like this feels magical or this feels like in, you know, some celestial thing, or maybe there's characters with like a magical torches, you know, going off into the distance, or you have buildings with pink glowing windows, and maybe it's like, you know, a forest with a bunch of little witch potion shops. Just stuff like that where sometimes it's just it creates a vibe. It's almost very abstract, and then you turn it into a thing. You are both so impressive, says Casey Snow Art. Taking notes on your streams, always. Well, thank you. Also, I still haven't sent out your print, but I have it. Thank you for the kind words, which is why it's gonna be a pain to realize. Oh, I have to go out of my way to get a sketchbook. Yeah. See, I always liked finishing sketchbooks. There was something that felt like an accomplishment where it's like, I did this. I am doing a thing that I set out to do, which is to draw a lot. Although these days I don't really finish that many sketchbooks because I paint digitally. But I have tons of you know, digital sketches. Not in a book, but I'm trying to think what I want to do here. I'm just here to absorb environments. I mean, it's funny because I don't know how much absorbing of environment skills anyone's going to do when I'm not even really talking about what I'm doing. And sometimes I'm just like doodling, and so it's not actually super clear what I'm doing, even to me. Like, I could talk about like the skill aspect of it, like the fundamentals and the choices, like overlapping shapes and, you know, using perspective and, you know, different sort of small, medium, large, and you know, there's stuff like that. But I think in terms of like, yeah, I don't know. A lot of times I'm not talking about that stuff. So I do always wonder how useful it is for people who want to learn to watch, because I don't feel like I'm always educating. Not as much as I'd like to. But this is where questions help, because they can help keep me on track. Let's put it. Ooh, let's do like a field, a field of flowers. So what if we had a bunch of flowers poking up in the foreground? Maybe there's some large ones in the foreground, and then up here maybe we have like some little houses or something. And again, I'm just making shapes. This is just the sketch. So little shapes here. Maybe there's like a house sitting on the ledge. Very Lion King-esque. Maybe some light behind it. It's just fun watching you make decisions and adjust and play. Yeah, that really is what it is, you know? It is just adjusting and playing. Also, maybe we bring in some light. I do like these pink things. So what if the light is like a blue? I'm just making kind of random shapes here, but I think this will work. What if we take like this light blue? I personally think it's always super educational to look at an artist draw, especially if it's watching your streams or sims, even when I'm mostly lurking in both streams. No. What if I do like a glow dodge or an whoa, not that. What was that? Overlay. Yeah, something like that. Kind of put some bluish light in here to kind of make it feel like moonlight, which might also make it feel more witchy. Although I'm adding in brighter stuff back here, so maybe not. Ooh, okay, so this bright stuff makes it feel like mist from like a waterfall. So like, again, what if we put like a little backdrop here? And maybe, again, some overlapping shapes, because I want this stuff to go back, so I'm just going to literally draw it in very lightly. And then this is going to be very flat. so that I can put shapes in front, like here. And then we can bring in shapes like this down here. And that can be the waterfall, maybe. I don't know if that'll look good, but we can do something like that. Maybe more here. Pink waterfalls. I don't know. It's kind of chill. There. And then maybe there's some stuff back here as well, off in the distance. Maybe there's some, I don't know, little strands of blue or something. Help push it back. There. That's a little environment. And then, of course, we can put these little pink flowers and little shapes in the foreground. There's, let's see. Nabs Draws says, I personally think it's always super educational to look at an artist draw. Oh, I already read that. Okay. And then Casey said, I feel like I learned something because you are making decisions that I wouldn't always think to make. That's true. That's definitely a thing that you can learn from watching someone draw, is like, you can kind of put yourself in their mind. And I actually get this a lot when I'm watching other artists critique stuff. So like on YouTube, there's a Clint Kearley, aka Swatches on YouTube. He does like these critique sessions, or he used to. And it's really fun watching other people critique stuff, because you can look at that and then you can pause the video and then you critique it, and then you see how their critique compares with yours. So like maybe they identify the same thing, but they actually explain it in a different way. And so you're like, oh, I noticed something was wrong, but I didn't quite know what was wrong, you know? And then they give you word, and it's like, oh, okay, that's sort of it teaches you sort of how they think about certain types of problems. And I like that stuff. And I find that to be very similar with artists when you watch them to draw, where like you can kind of say, what if I were the one drawing that? What would I do right here? Or what choices are they making? And if I were to have made those choices, or would I have even thought of it? And it's kind of like, I don't know, I think it's a lot of fun to sort of trying to put yourself in their shoes. You can never do it perfectly though, right? Because there's always going to be, like, you never really know what's in their head. But you can try, you can guess. Actually, there was this conversation I was just having about this topic. It wasn't really about this topic, it was more about style, which is a topic I don't like to use the word hate. I don't know if I hate it. I don't particularly think it's a very productive conversation to talk about style, but because style is like the output, right? So just before I jump into a total ramble on this topic, my view on this is that style is the output of all the stuff, you know, your tools, your habits, your skills, your knowledge, your preferences, your tastes, your what you're getting paid to do, right? It's everything. It's all the stuff that you do for the reasons you do it, or don't know why you do it, or even if you do know why you do it, it's all the reasons for all the things. And then the output is like, choices have been made, right? Style emerges. And so when you want to focus on style, you have to focus on the inputs, right? Like your choices or your knowledge or something, right? There's something that, or if you change your tools, it's going to affect something as well, right? It's much more than any one of those parts. But anyway, I digress. There was this conversation happening about style, and people like fussing over like style. Like, I want to get better. When I try to copy an artist's style, it just doesn't work because I don't understand why they're making the choices they're making. And it's like, well, yeah, you can't, because you don't know. All you can ever do is guess at why they're making their choices. But you can inform that guess by learning about the thing. So like my analogy was like a soup, right? Like or a meal, right? Go learn about different ingredients and how they work together before you start trying to reverse engineer some master chef's dish, right? Right? Don't go reverse engineering like tasty dishes until you like maybe like if you aren't even aware of what ingredients exist, you aren't even going to know where to look, right? Go learn about the ingredients first, and then you can start identifying when you eat food, like, oh, I can taste that thing I learned about, and then you can start working backwards from there. But like, first step is just to go experience, like, learn about the ingredients of art, you know? Anyway, that's my thing for style. So yeah, it's always like a very rant-inducing topic for me, because it feels like so many people put the cart before the horse, you know? Or put the destination before the process. It's just like, don't worry about style. Learn about what makes art work. What makes your art art, you know? What makes it good? And then you can be like, I bet they did a thing. Like I mean, I kind of noticed it in Sims's art. Like, I don't know why they put the stuff they did in certain places, but my guess is at some point they were like, I'm gonna put little cats in here that are ghosty cats, you know, and where am I gonna put them? You know, if I put them behind overlapping shapes, I can help show the depth of this. So it's, you know, the cats are doing double duty in that they're showing depth to the painting, but also adding story. So it's not just a random story element placed randomly, it's a story element placed strategically to make the painting stronger, right? And like, now I can guess at why they put their cat in the particular location they put it, right? It worked compositionally. It, you know, the shape of the tail maybe drew the eye in one way, maybe they didn't intend it, but like, it can do all these things. Whether or not that is true, of like why, you know, they put that things and those things, it's kind of irrelevant, right? But it's more like, those are things you could be thinking about. But if you aren't aware of those like mechanics of how art works, you can't even make those assumptions. And I don't know if my assumptions are right, but like, it's at least a starting point. And yeah. So anyway, that's my ramble. Like, for example, I'm thinking about putting a big hard shape right here. Maybe not a hard shape, but like a shape right here. Why? Why am I putting a shape right here? Well, I think my painting needs some overlap between an object that's back here and up here, right? I don't want it to be a flat line. And so putting an overlap can help separate this painting, or this color, or this mountain thing, from the one in the foreground. So I'm basically breaking it into foreground and midground, or background and midground, right? And I can do another one here. So each of these steps is like a thing. So it's the same line, I'm just choosing to break it up to make the illusion read. But also maybe I want this waterfall to like go off in the distance, and maybe I want this one to come up here. A pink waterfall, I don't know. Going over the edge. Maybe not. Anyway. Titan says I'm gonna head off for lunch. Yeah, no worries. But yeah. Thanks again, everybody, for popping in. I don't know why I said that like I'm ending. Thanks again, everybody, for being here. I'm not ending, I'm still painting. We got quite a while, another couple hours, at least. Give great inspo for your own environment attempts. Come on now, Casey. I know that was 10 minutes ago when you said that, but environment attempt? They're environments. You call them environments. Your attempt. I mean, I guess they're still attempts, but so is this. This is an attempt. Everything is like, adding attempt makes it sound like it's, this is gonna be my try. If it works, it works. No, I think that actually isn't a bad way to view it, though, because, you know, it's also okay to attempt, and maybe you don't feel like you succeeded, and that's okay. So I shouldn't get on your case too hard about calling it an attempt. Because I do the same for myself. I call it attempts, or like, yeah. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. but I definitely can sound a little negative. Okay, I'm gonna add some darkness in here. I do like the glowy blue though. Hmm. Feels a little, is it dreamy? What am I feeling? Maybe I want to add some more green. I mean, I think this blue could get way more blue, like crazy blue, and that would be an interesting. I think that would be interesting. Does that look good? Hmm. I mean, that's kind of cool. This is kind of neat. The super saturated blue. Like, what if these are like, mysterious floating rocks? Like a giant. I don't know. Again, this could be like a house. Like there could be like a rift here or something. Maybe it's a little village or something that's sort of. We have some very weird, like maybe like a magical growth. Like that. That's kind of cute. Or it could be a tree. I mean, I do like my trees. Maybe it's like getting out of control. Eh. I mean, actually, it's not bad. But maybe just something a little bit unusual. That's what I'm trying to do. It doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, it's never going to be perfect, but it is fun. Also, what about some fun clouds back here? Maybe to frame it just a little bit. I mean, we don't really need to frame it, but maybe like maybe with some interesting lines in here, we can sort of add some addition. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe we don't need to do that. Playing around. Maybe the clouds are darker actually up here, so like if we can push the eye in a little bit, just guide ourselves in a bit, keep it nice and blue. Back here, maybe a little bit of light. There. That's a fun painting. It's a little cozy. It's not, maybe some of these shapes could have some carvings in them, or like carved out lines a little bit. Stuff like that, where this is sort of, we can play around with the rock shapes a bit. Maybe there's also more rock shapes back here. I don't know. I kind of like these just to be straight down, but that's kind of fun. Maybe there's also more background shapes back here. A little more rocky structures. Ooh, wait, this feels, okay, hold on. What about a beach? It's a coastal town. What about that? Does that look pretty beachy? That looks pretty beachy. And then I don't know if that's gonna detract from it. Maybe not. And then some more waterfalls down here, there. So it's kind of this like Again, the waterfalls are funny enough, almost drawing too much attention. I think it's okay. Maybe we only have one waterfall, so maybe like this one over here isn't there. So that this is more just like the rocky shore and or the rocky cliffs. And then over here we can have some overlap. I'm a little bit on the fence of some of this stuff up here. Maybe I put some rocks and stuff up this way to kind of create like an overlap buffer kind of thing of like, you know, because otherwise it's weird to have this perfect line eyesight, right? Like having a perfect sight of like, you know, keeping your eye on the ground the whole way can make the, I don't know, it can kind of mess with your perspective a little bit. So I think having things that kind of block this, right? If I were to put like a rock right here, I don't know if I'm going to, but if I were, right, that kind of, now you don't really know, right? Hey Skittle, how's it going? Howdy. So yeah, maybe we cover it up with like foreground stuff, add a little bit of, or additional like lines. So we could do like a, think of like banding. So like a line, I'll do it in yellow, but like a line here, and then a line here, and then a line here. That way, even though it's not overlapped, they create this visual barrier of like each step you can kind of see how it goes further away. So like you could do that with like the flowers and with the details. This is something that I find is you know, going back to our style rant a little bit. This is something I think is when people are first starting to like, how do I find style? Is I think this is one of the things that they skip out on is like, by understanding the function of the things that you're doing, like it's not just like put detail here and make it look like this, right? It's typically like, I need to, like, problem is this object feels flat, right? How do I make it look less flat, right? Like, what if maybe it's like this or something, and like, how do I make this look less flat, right? I don't want to physically add these lines all around it, but what if this were an object and there was a pattern, right? And I put details around it, right? And these details followed that perspective line, right? So you have, you know, they're scrunching up over here, right? Same down here, right? They're scrunching up, and then they get wider, and then they get scrunched again, and they also follow those contours. And if you put enough of those details, suddenly you can start making this thing look rounded, right? Like, you can, it's not just random details, and maybe you don't need them up here. Maybe you just put them down here, maybe you put a little bit here, and a little bit here, and like, your brain can start to fill in, like, okay, this thing has a shape to it, you know, maybe this is like someone's arm or something, you know, and it's a tattoo, whatever. But like, it's not just random, right? And so I think a lot of times people look at other people's art and they're like, wow, they put all these things, you know, I see that a lot of their characters have tattoos. I want to copy that because that's a stylistic choice or something. And then you do it, but it's like, well, my art looks nothing like theirs, right? But it's like, well, they were probably doing it because, well, one, it was probably the character's design, but also like it affects how you view the thing. Like, they were probably adding it in certain areas because it did a thing. You know, if they didn't need it there, maybe they could have changed the outfit, or, you know, like, I don't know. I feel like most stylistic choices are done for a purpose often. Like, it's not always like a sole purpose, but like, they started there at some point. I don't know. That's my hot take. Okay. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. One more thumbnail. We can do one more. I like this one though. That was a fun one. Let's do something a little bit. I mean, this is a nice one. Hey, Peter Steves, how are you? How's your day going? Also, don't forget to hydrate. Sip your tea or coffee of choice. What are your guys' favorite, or not favorite? What is your beverage of choice when you're working? If you could have an unlimited supply, always at the perfect temperature, so you never, you know, if it's coffee, you never had to heat it up. You just always coffee ready to go. An infinite cup of a beverage. What would it be? and no money-making schemes. No money. It has to be consumed by you and only you. You can't pour it out and make infinite money. No. If you had a infinitely full cup though, it never fills. It never goes away, and it will the perfect temperature. What would it be? I would get sick of a beverage. I know, but you can always put it away. You don't have to always drink it. You don't have to always drink it, but it's always there if you want it. What is it? White monster to accelerate your demise. Okay. If I love it, then orange juice maybe. Okay. There's always gonna be those answers. Like I would take, you know, puree, like like your favorite meal. That way you never have to buy food again. You know, something like, but no circumventing that thought experiment. Something like Darjeeling, maybe black tea. Yeah, I would just do Earl Grey. Skittle says vanilla chai or Roy Boots. I mean, if it was a real thought thing, I would absolutely rig it for myself so that I can profit from it, or, you know. The real answer is actually tea. Get those kidney stones. Get one of those Gatorade powered drinks things all the time. Kidney stones get one of those Gatorade. Wait. Do Gatorade powered energy drinks give you kidney stones? I actually don't know how kidney stones work, other than I hear they are awful experiences. But energy drinks give you, is that actually a thing? I didn't know that. Kidney stones are part genetic, right? Like if you have, if they don't, like if your family, maybe I'm wrong on this. I probably am. If your family has a history of kidney stones, then you're more likely to get them. But like most people never get them in their lives. It is salty things like energy drinks, drinking like a ton of or something. Oh, interesting. I didn't know that. Bert Killies says, I keep being told I'll have kidney stones from drinking energy drinks, yet I continue to urinate in bliss. That's good. Glad it's all coming out well. There are a few things that cause them. Generally, it's an imbalance in diet that can cause them, but there are other genetic issues that can make you predisposed to them. Gotcha. Well, they sound terrible. I hope I never have them. I haven't yet. Thank goodness. I still don't know if I've ever had Rooibos tea. I honestly don't know if I've ever had it. Skittle, how do you make your Rooibos tea? What do you put in it? Do you put anything in particular in it? Okay, let's just start with a big tower. Towering castle shape. Maybe a big infinite Kool-Aid might be nice. Oof, sugar. No, thank you. I would not do a sugary drink. I know enough about my own like self-control and just like human nature in general to know that if I had an infinite amount of a high calorie like sugary drink, my teeth would be terrible and I would consume way too much of it. Like I know for sure that would happen, even though I'm telling myself it wouldn't. And I'm like, yeah, I could totally control myself, and yeah, I'm not an idiot. Why would I do this terrible thing for me? But like time and time again shows that like human nature, if you give someone an infinite supply of something terrible, they will absolutely overindulge in it. So you know, maybe I could be the snowflake who manages to avoid it, but I wouldn't bet on myself. So I would avoid the sugary drinks, even though I would love to have an infinite amount of orange juice or you know, soda or something. If you drink a good amount of water. I probably don't, unless you count tea, but tea is kind of water. Also, Kool-Aid is disgusting. It's I don't think I can drink Kool-Aid. I had it as a kid and it was okay-ish, but it was so dang sugary. Like, what the heck? I don't know how people drink that. And like, look, I like sugar. Or I definitely did as a kid, but now, oh my goodness, I don't know how people do it. Tea is mostly water, so it should be fine, yeah. Okay, we are painting. We are going with the flow. What if we do some magical, mystical thingy by putting lots of glow dodge? I like glowing stuff in paintings. Whether it's a sunset or floating magical orbs that glow or a portal that glows. It's just nice. It gets the imagination imagining. It makes the brain math. No, it makes the imagination do its thing. So like, what is this thing? Maybe these are butterflies or things, you know, floating through a swamp. You know, maybe we put some here as well. And then if that's the case, like what about what if all of these shapes did something? Leg Owl says, I think I never drank Kool-Aid, but I don't know. If I can buy it here, for me it was always a USA thing. I think it's very much a USA thing. I think most people don't dump packets of sugar, multiple packets of sugar into water and drink it. Like, Kool-Aid is just... It almost shouldn't be... I don't like proclaiming things shouldn't be legal simply because I don't like them. But I feel like there is no... I mean, I guess there is an upside in that it's tasty for some people. But, like, it's gotta be positive net harm, right? Not positive, but, like, a net harm, right? The total amount of harm this thing does versus the total amount of benefit it adds, it's gotta be in the negative. I can't. I don't understand it. My brain, I mean, I kind of do, but again, I never know how to think about stuff like sugar and sodas and energy drinks and like, I don't know. On one hand, people should be allowed to make those choices, right? But on the other hand, I mean, again, I'm not like a healthy person. My dietary habits are terrible. So I'm not like immune to this, but this is like me when I'm in the mode of thinking about myself and my health. And then there's the me who's like doing my shopping in the moment. And I'm like, this looks tasty. I'm gonna buy it. What's a tub of ice cream gonna, you know, what's the harm in that? And then I eat it in one sitting. I'm like, that was a really bad idea. I shouldn't have eaten an entire tub of ice cream. That shouldn't be allowed. Skill says, I believe we do have Kool-Aid over in the US, but I've never had it before. Gatorade and all that stuff. Yeah, I mean, that's very similar, right? Gatorade, I think Gatorade is like Kool-Aid with additional vitamins to make the back of the label look like it's healthy. That's probably an oversimplification, but like, they put... I don't know. I can't imagine Gatorade is much more healthy than Kool-Aid. Although Kool-Aid is just straight sugar packs. Post ice cream regret, a totally relatable condition. I I don't have the greatest eating habits. Like, I mostly just eat when I'm hungry, which is okay. But or not even just when I'm hungry. Sometimes I forget that I'm hungry because I'm, doing another thing, and I'm just like, oh crap, I haven't eaten in 8 hours. So sometimes I forget to eat. But if I don't typically eat when I'm not hungry, is what I'm trying to say, right? It's either because I'm very hungry or just regularly hungry. But like if I'm not hungry and I haven't eaten in a while, I'm not gonna be like, I should probably eat, right? Uh, and so one of the problems with that is I basically don't snack, right? I'm not much of a snacker when it comes to food. So if I ever want something like ice cream, when do I eat it? Right? That's the question. I've just told you I don't eat food just out of craving. I only eat it when I'm hungry. So I'm basically eating it at when I should be eating a meal. Like, I'm hungry. I think I'll get some ice cream. You can see why this is bad, right? Like, that is not a good way to eat ice cream. And then when do I stop eating the ice cream? When I'm not hungry. So I can eat, like, yeah, it's very much not good. Um, it is not a healthy way to, so I try not to buy ice cream, although I still do. But yeah, my eating habits are all over the place. There's some fun shapes in here. By the way, if anybody's curious in sort of this, I don't want to call it like style of painting, but this sort of landscape where it's very just nice colors, but it's very like graphical, right? You have a lot of like big graphical shapes. This is extremely, if you're brand new to this stuff, it's extremely accessible in my opinion to get into, because basically what I'm doing is painting a gradient. So to make it clear for people, I'm basically starting with a dark foreground, and in this case, a light background. I'm just going to use like a white or something, or maybe a bright yellow. Doesn't really matter. And I'm basically just making a gradient. So it's pretty much just a few values, maybe, call it 4 values. Um, and then the foreground, so if we kind of make these in some proportion, right? I basically have a foreground, midground, background, right? So foreground, midground, background, and I guess we could call it sky back here, but it's all kind of just different layers, right? But pretty much what I'm doing is I'm grabbing that foreground layer and I'm just pulling upward, right? And so those are like the trees down here. Maybe I want a shape. I'll make some tree shapes, and then maybe I want another tree shape. Maybe maybe some rocks or something in the foreground. But then if I want stuff in the midground, I just take that midground layer and I pull up. So maybe here's some more shapes, maybe some more trees, right? Maybe there's some trees back here. And then you get some background shapes, and again, those are smaller, but you're taking that same color and you're just putting them back there. So all of a sudden you have an environment. So I'm doing the same thing here as I am here. It's extremely simple. I think in this case, it's probably a little darker like this, where I more only have 3 values. Obviously, I've added some additional glowing stuff in here, but it's very, very simple. Maybe I have bigger shapes up front, or maybe I have some overlapping shapes on the top. But it's basically just a gradient, and I'm not worrying about form much. I mean, I have a little bit of shading going on in here, where I take like a very light color or a very dark color, and I just lightly paint it on top here to create like a, some additional lighting. But pretty much, right? But again, this dark color is still darker than all the other stuff, right? It's like I'm keeping the values very tight. But this kind of painting is very accessible. I think most people can do it. You need a little bit of knowledge in perspective and scale, or at least the concepts to practice when you're doing it. Making the things smaller as they go further back. Maybe some repeating shapes, maybe some overlapping shapes. don't be afraid to like play around with your knowledge of negative spaces. So if you have like a big shape here, maybe you want, you know, a hole in the rock or something, like you can do that, right? You're putting the shapes. So like this color back here is going to be behind here. So it's going to look like there's a hole in this rock. And then of course shape design, right? So like here's another hole in that rock. Maybe there's a light patch going straight down here and it cuts through there. But anyway, this is something that I think pretty much anyone can start. Obviously, there's, I have some experience doing this, so it's going to probably look like it's easier for me. But I think that's something that, this is like the bread and butter of what I'm doing. Even when it doesn't look like I'm doing this, I probably am doing this to some degree. Bullcrypt says, I love how you explain your process. It's very helpful. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to make it sound like every single painting I do is just a formulaic thing like this, but obviously there's things like adding lighting to a painting. There's different ways to add lighting. Do you add a directional lighting? Do you add ambient lighting that's just kind of lightly shining down? Maybe it's dappled lighting, right? And of course, once you get into colors, there's different stuff. Maybe like what else is like? There's lots of different ways to do it. Not every painting is backlit. Some paintings are very overcast, and then again, maybe they're side lit, and so you have like harsh shadows, and like sure, there's different stuff, and that's gonna break these things, but they're all kind of layered on top of this more foundational knowledge. Or like technically, you could start with like, instead of the dark foreground, you could start with a dark midground, right? And maybe your midground looks like this, and then your background is maybe still bright, but then you have a medium color in here. Like you could do a painting like this also. This, and in fact, if you do a lot of studies, this is a thing that you notice a lot, where like, especially if you ever have painted like a lake or something, this is pretty much what you see, right? You see like the bright reflective lake in the foreground, or like a medium value lake. You might have something like this, and then you'll have this like dark line of trees off in the distance, and the darkest part of the image ends up being this tree line, right? And so it's like, or same thing with like a farmland with a field, you'll have this dark tree line off in the distance, and like that's a different setup than this one, but it's still kind of the same thing, because you still have like, if you had this tree in the foreground, it would be a darker, more more contrasting tree, but it's just not in the foreground, so it's not going to be as dark. This might be like a wheat field up here, and everything else behind it is like a dark, nearly black tree or something, right? So sometimes you get these, like, it doesn't look like it's the same, but it actually kind of secretly is. That happens a lot. So anyway, I'm going to delete these because these were not paintings that I want to work on. I also don't want to work on number 3 because that's not, I mean, it looks nice, but it's not clear what's happening. So yeah, these will be fun. Thank you for the follow, by the way. Hope you're doing well. Time to vote for 8, says Titan on YouTube. Yeah, it's 8's not going to make the cut, unfortunately. Rest in peace, number 8. Okay, but these will make the cut. Oh, not that one. I almost just did something that I would have regretted. Okay, so here's... No, 8 is gone. I know, what a shame. Okay. So. What shall I do? Okay, I'm gonna make a straw poll. You're back! Hello, Muffin. Welcome back. We have 6 options today. Muffin, you are just in time for voting. If you would like to participate in the vote and decide my fate, decide the fate of the stream, and make it sound way more impactful than it actually is. It's not that big of a deal. But if anybody would like to vote on a thumbnail, here is the straw poll for the day. I'm going to make these large so you can see them properly. There. So yeah, if you'd like to vote, feel free. You should be able to vote for any number of them. You can vote for multiples. Yeah. So like, for example, if you like both 3 and 5, you can vote for both those. I think those are my two favorites. Number 6 is fun, but 3 and 5 are more fun. Ooh, 5 is crushing it. It's not even close. It's okay. 5's one. We can just wrap it up right now. It has more than double the second number of votes. 5 is killing it. I know, seriously. That's okay. I like 5. It's been a while since I've done a soft blue light, like almost like a magical moonlight kind of thing. Yeah, number 3 is kind of doing okay though. This is always a good time to stretch your hands and wrists and just stretch in general. Sit up straight, drink your tea, save your art, do all the things you need to do. You look so pretty. Oh, thank you. Uncle Auntie Philly says, went and did possibly the last art fight for this year. It's a defense. I posted it in art. Very cute. Aw, that's fun. Is anyone else doing art fight? I don't know much about it other than what people here have told me, but it seems like a good time. Any sort of community-driven event like that seems fun. Tea reminder? Yeah, tea reminder. Drink that tea or coffee or orange juice, whatever you guys are sipping on. As a reminder, I also post all of these thumbnails and the final art in my Discord, so if anybody wants to join Discord, they can always do that. I will put the Discord link right there. And you can also share your own art in here. I love seeing what people in the community are making. I want to be there at the next sketch event. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. The sketch event. Wait. The one that we hosted or Art Fight? Because, yeah, we just did a sketch event on Thursday. Wait, were you here? I don't even know, Titan. Sorry, I can't remember everybody who participated. But yeah, we just did a sketch event on Saturday where we did like a Secret Santa style sketch event. Everybody shuffled up names, picked the name from a hat, the name that they were assigned. They drew the prompt of the person who submitted the prompt. So it was just kind of like a random prompt thing. The prompt I got was flamingo cocktail. So I drew like some flamingos in a martini glass, kind of like waiting in the water or in the drink. It was pretty fun. But yeah, we have just a few more minutes. I probably should have pinned this to the top of chat. I don't know why I did that. That was a goof on my part. Let me pin the message of the straw poll for 2 minutes. 2 more minutes, and also I'm going to take a look at your work. Aw, that is cute. That's a cute character. Fun art fight character. You weren't able to make it, says Titan, because you were forced on another vacay. And it wasn't fun. Oh man. You know, that is I will admit, whenever I have it, well, not always. Actually, my last vacation I had, which was like over 2 years ago, genuinely felt like a vacation. But most of my vacations where I like physically go somewhere away from home feel anything but a vacation. They feel like work. They're exhausting. There's a lot of planning. There's a lot of like just stuff and interacting with people that maybe you wouldn't have wanted to interact with, but you kind of feel like you have to because you're there, you know, like visiting family and friends or something, but like there's more people anyway. They're stressful. I don't typically like vacations for that reason. My idea of a vacation typically is like stay home. Just stay home, don't work, and do whatever the heck take it off for like a video, like align it with a video game release so I can spend all vacation playing video games. That's my ideal vacation, I think. Maybe not ideal, but like it's up there. It's the safe option where I'm pretty much guaranteed to enjoy it. But yeah. And thank you for the follow. Okay, let's see which one is winning the vote. Oh, okay, number 5 is 1. It's not even. I'm just gonna call it. It has 11 votes. Thank you guys for voting. 12 of you have voted. Number 5 is the winner. We're just gonna go like that. Stretch it, make it larger. I do like this one. Maybe we'll and not stretch it. Sorry, we're crop it. Yeah, I think this one's gonna be fun. All right, so wait. Oh no, I did a thing. Hold on. Nope. Let me back up. Let me save this. Save it as a new file first. Oh, I'll get my face back on screen. Save it as a new file first. And then I'll crop it and save it again. I kind of saved over my thumbnails here, so that was a goof up. Okay. Thumbnail cropping. Copy paste. And sometimes I get the question when I do this, like, aren't I afraid of this thing being like stretched and looking ugly and pixelated? No, because it's already very painterly and messy and blobby and pixelated. Like, I don't care if there's a little bit of blurriness because none of this is defined or, I'm gonna paint over the whole thing. Because this is just like the initial sketch, right? This is not, I just happen to be sketching in color and with shapes, so this is not, I don't actually care if it's blurry. And sometimes the blurriness is actually nice, because if I do leave any marks there, they'll be less defined than the other, so they kind of just like naturally kind of fade to the background, and they can actually create some nice softness in areas that maybe I wasn't totally planned. So that's actually kind of nice. All right, let's see. I think I missed some chat. That was our quick break. Peter says, I was doing art fight or am, but then I went on a random 2-week vacay. Oh, gotcha. Oh, thank you for the follows, by the way. Everybody just followed. Your vacations are basically conventions. Oh, that sounds fun. You plan only your sleep and eating time. I see. Yeah, it was an event that was important for your dad, so I had to go. Yeah, understandable. That's typically most of my life. Is how vacations were. It was like family vacations where I didn't plan it. It was my parents, and it was probably partly vacation for them, partly thinking it's a vacation for us, and it just never felt refreshing. But now that I think I'm the one, I'm like living on my own, and of course I'm working. And so vacations for me now, I think, feel a bit more vacation-y, but they didn't always. Okay, so let's diagnose this painting. I'm just assuming that it has issues. So my diagnosis for this painting. I'm just going to try to talk through my thought process. So like I said, this is my sketch. And so some of the stuff, like, I think the focal point, it's not quite clear what's happening. I like that it's magical feeling. It has these vibrant colors. I think that's fun. Hey Trey Live, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. I also like that there's like a beach or water line down here. I think maybe we can emphasize that a little bit. I don't know if we want it to be super in focus, but putting some sort of water line down there to show that this is like a shoreline would be kind of neat. But yeah, I think our main thing is going to be the focal point, maybe some of the foreground stuff, you know, like having some of these flowers or plants sort of taper off in a way, or, you know, have like a nice overlapping shapes and some sort of design there. The painting is sick. Interpret that as you will, says Titan. I'm doing good. Thanks for asking. Ah, glad you're doing well. I'm glad you're doing good. Hope everyone's doing well. Hopefully you're surviving the heat. It's been hot. Hopefully you have air conditioning if it's super hot. Okay. So, let's try to think, what could this be? This could be a giant tree, but I kind of like the idea of like a giant, like a temporal rift or something, you know? Maybe some magic is flowing. You know, there's this white stuff back here, which was going to be clouds, but what if it was like not clouds? What if it was part of the foreground? You know, I like the idea of a kind of a cute little home. But maybe this home is like home to a scientist who is, you know, a mad alchemist or somebody who's doing experiments with forbidden arcane magic, or not arcane magic, but just magic, dark magic or something, and it's sort of like, you know, like consuming their home and creating like a blob or something, you know, like it's like a, you know, the magical rift is expanding and their home is getting caught in the center of it, you know. I came in at dark arcane magic, so that explains why you're amazing. Yeah, but like, what if we had like, you know, this person's home, they're doing magic, and there's like this blob, you know, and it's like warping time and space, and like, you know, like it's something is getting out of control, you know, and so you have all these little, you know, maybe it's like dark shapes, you know, swooshing around, almost like ink, kinda like this is actually, speaking of, hi Chikiri, this is something Chikiri would be really good at, because she does lots of like liney patterns and stuff, and I feel like making patterns that look like stuff, right? Like, I don't know, patterns that look like stuff. Shakiri's really good at that, like floral patterns or just random patterns. I don't know. Yeah, anyway, Shakiri's amazing. Hi, Shakiri. Hope you're doing well. Like a fun time to play with organic shapes for energy. Yeah, this is something that I don't do enough of, which is figure out how to. I mean, I kind of did like a, almost like a what is it? Like, hold on. Like a helix kind of thing, you know? How it's like, what's the shape of a... that's not a helix. It's not a helix either. But you know, like they always show you know, the atoms and like the things like spinning and going... Yeah, it do be stuff. I don't know how to describe it, but like that's kind of what I'm imagining. Almost like sunbursts, you know, coming out of these things. And I mean, it's totally changing it. But then like maybe in the middle you can kind of see like a house or a home. I didn't know what a helix looked. I think no, a helix is like this thing, right? Like you have two things going counter. Wait, how do you draw? I don't know how to draw this. Like a double helix is like two lines. I don't know how to draw. I don't know. I don't know what I'm talking about, but you get the idea. This is some sort of thing going wrong. And then maybe this stuff, whatever it is affecting these plants. So like imagine again, scientists' home, uh, being consumed by this energy stuff. What if it is making its way into these plants? So we have some flowers in here, but not just any flowers, flowers that are wilting and turning gray and dark along the edges. Maybe with that streak of like dark blue along the edge. So you have these plants. It's just 3D circles, right? Maybe. I mean, I know like the way DNA is portrayed, maybe. I think I was mixing up like the model of like the atom, like the atomic model thing, like this, where I don't know if that's how it is, where you have like the nucleus in the middle and then you have the thingies going around it. It's like the graphical idea of like, the electrons and the right, all the things. I think I was mixing up that with my word of a helix. Maybe that is a helix. I don't know. I don't think it is. I don't know. I don't know my words. But what I'm doing here in this painting, I think it would be fun that like whatever experiment this is affecting the environment. And so how can we like, if this is the epicenter of this abomination, how might the surrounding environment be affected? Maybe there's things like maybe there's things that are being affected as it goes further away. So like the flowers are wilting but they're turning this blue color or this purple color. Maybe there's the water is black. No, I don't know. Maybe not black. That would be weird looking. I mean, that could look cool, actually. Like a dark black liquid. But that would need to be like its main focal point, I think. Things transmuting or wilting from the dark arts could be cool. Yeah, I think in terms of environment, as far as environments go, unless you're doing a super narrative driven environment, I find that one of my favorite ways is just like little subtle hints and thinking about it in a very practical sense. So, we have this thing that exists and just like, what is its effect on the environment? Maybe it's making these rocks, break off. And so you put little rocks breaking off, but maybe it's affecting gravity. And so you have little floating, these rocks are like floating upward and you have, things being distorted in space and time, so you have these little like distortions of rocks, sprinkling up. Maybe you have, maybe the waves are being affected, and so you have the waves are being a little bit more uneasy down here, if this is like a beach, maybe this stuff is also, these waterfalls are like starting to like go into the thing, like here's the waterfall as it's, instead of falling straight, it's being vortex sucked up into the into the thing. Like, wouldn't that be kind of cool? And so suddenly we just have all these little things being affected. The plants are maybe, the shapes are being pointing at the thing because they're being like bending, like like a breeze coming along in a field where all the wheat kind of sways to one direction. But like, what if that happened where you have all these things leaning? It might not look like a lot, like each piece isn't a lot, but as you approach it, you start to get a sense of, okay, I'm seeing what's happening, right? And so now I need to redraw stuff. Yeah, so now I need to redraw stuff because this stuff isn't in the right angle, right? Yeah, it's going to help with composition too, because it is pulling it towards a point, which I think is sort of it's like a double whammy, right? Like it works for story, it works for composition, it's a win-win. Um, but it doesn't always work for composition. So for example, this is kind of weird. I don't like that because that could make a tangent, right? So you've got to be careful. So maybe this one, we wait till it goes further down, right? Or something. Yeah, it's telling it with the environment. There's the, the forces of nature. Obviously, this is, when you're doing something on this scale, it's obviously going to make it a little easier. But, um, sometimes it's just like a geological process, erosion. That's a story, right? Literally, it's a story of time and water interacting with something over a long period of time. Like, you might not think of it as a story, but trying to think of an environment in that way, I think it's so, I don't know, it gives you a sort of logic to follow where like the choices come a little easier because you can reason it out, right? It's like, I'm gonna put a character in here. Well, what are they gonna look like? I can tell you. I don't know exactly what they're going to look like, but I know that if they're wearing any baggy clothing, it's going to be flopping in the wind into this thing, right? So what if we give them a cape or a cloak or a scarf that is going to be pulling them, maybe they're going to be fighting the breeze, so they're literally leaning this way out of the, trying to get away, and their clothing is flapped. Like, I may not know exactly what they look like, but I can tell you what they're doing and their actions, like, just because I know the story, right? So that stuff helps drive your choices, and I like it. It almost makes it easy when you have like a cohesive theme. And I'm not claiming that it's easy to paint or to make it look good, but I don't know. And of course, references, finding references of waves and waterfalls and things blowing in the wind. And I could probably spend all day just painting this stuff. Looking good, Joe? Thanks. But yeah, I think environment storytelling is nice. It's fun because there's so many different sort of levels of it. You have the literal storytelling, like character interacting with environment or whatever, or volcano exploding and it's everything is, people are running, buildings are being toppled. But you also just have like, I don't know, dark, swampy, overcast, gloomy looking vibe with, red little eyes in the distance, or little dots in the distance that could be eyes. Like, that's storytelling. That's telling you who's there. Where are you? Is it, you can make it feel spooky, by having playing up with the lighting and stuff and the shapes the trees can be, make it feel spooky. It's not like this tree is doing a thing or this tree exists for a reason. It's more like this tree makes you feel creeped out because it has weird finger like tendrils or something, like that's a type of storytelling where you're playing with mood. And that's what I like. Is I think that's probably my favorite kind, where it's more about the vibe and the lighting plays a big role. This I actually don't do this kind very often. It's fun though. But this kind of thing is very illustrative, where like you pretty much need a story ahead of time. I mean, you're not always. I didn't have one for this, but maybe there's big leaves floating in the wind. So I don't know what's going on with this music. Here's some leaves. And there's something to be said. Back in, it was the first time, I think, showing motion. So So there is something to be said about keeping this stuff very blurry because, again, it's in motion. It's literal leaves flapping in the wind. You know, and also try to do, like, gesture. So, like, where is it? You know, is it going this direction? You know, is it just going straight to it? You know, I think having some sort of motion and flow with it is going to help. So, like, for example, these shapes back here, I can actually probably, like, tamp down in their intensity to really focus on this motion, right? So I'm kind of trying to get rid of some of that stuff, get rid of some of this. Maybe some of this stuff is sort of... Anyway, I'm sort of trying to... And maybe I bring in some of that blue here. Nah, I don't know. There's, of course, also things like overall value read, you know, contrast. Does it look good? I don't know if it does. There's going to be things like little rocks and stuff back here, maybe to help sell the... to sell the idea. Oops. You know, how much detail do I want to put? I think I can keep it pretty simple. So what I'm going to find is references. I don't even know where to begin for this. So actually, if anybody has any ideas, like ball of energy, that's not going to be a good, like maybe plasma. Sorta. Here, let me grab the references, so you guys can see what I'm looking at. But yeah, trying to find references for things like this can be a little tricky. Sometimes it's its own creative. Yeah, the sun. The sun would be a good one with sunbursts. Exactly. That's an obvious one. I even literally mentioned sunbursts, or whatever you call it, like solar flares. That's the word, right? Is that the word? Solar flares? Maybe a combination of like the sun. This was the first thing that I found, which I just typed in plasma. Yeah, sun image or sun surface image. You know, stuff like that, where you have these massive spots, like, bursting out. But, like, a dark version of this, like, if I were to invert this... Actually, I wonder what would happen if I invert this. It might look like that, but inverted. Yeah, maybe nebulas, yeah. And sometimes you don't even know, right? You just have, like, a vague idea of, like, oh, this might look right. And, like, you know, obviously I'm going to have to invent this to some degree. I don't quite know the language or how I want to do it. And I'm not seeing good nebula images. But, like, yeah, I mean, I could even try this, right? So what if I copy this? I'm just going to put it in here. What if I just invert this image? Filter. Effect. Distort. Where's invert? Correction. Blurb. Nope. Edit. Do you guys know how to invert colors in Clip Studio? Polar coordinates, fisheye, ripple, twirl, wave, zigzag, effect, artistic. I don't know how to do it. Searching and help work? Maybe. Oh, let me just do invert colors ClipStudioPaint. Layer menu and put new correction layer. New correction layer. Tonal correction. Is that even a thing? So, edit, tonal correction, reverse gradient. Oh, there it is. Reverse gradient. Okay. Well, that's not quite what I was looking for. But yeah, something like that where you have these dark spots, right? And then you have these little like lines shooting out. That's kind of what I'm looking for. And maybe there's some... Again, this is like not a very high quality image. Do we have any... What else do we have? Again, like this one. So edit, tonal correction, reverse gradient, right? So kind of like that is sort of what I'm thinking, a little bit. And again, I'm not actually gonna use that as my image, but let's close some of these other things I've done. It looks pretty cool. Yeah, but basically, yeah, you have the dark spots in the middle, and I don't know. I'm kind of vibing with this already. It doesn't have to be like a total black hole, but you know, maybe some of this stuff is... I mean, it could also be like, if I'm not careful, it could end up looking gooey. Like I don't know, do I want like light on it or not? I kind of like light on it. Maybe the clouds are even affected, you know? But going back to our reference here that I put in, right? If I do the edit, tonal correction, reverse gradient, you know, out here it does get fainter. The darkest spot is right in the middle, so like maybe I can keep that in mind. So maybe in here, for example, if I just... Maybe I start with like a single weird shape like this, right? Just like a weird shape. And right in the middle is where... So let's actually do something. I'm gonna merge visible. And then I'm gonna make this image a little bigger because I actually want to zoom in and detail a little bit. So I'm gonna go 4K. The reason I'm going this large is because I want to be able to render some of this surface a little bit, and it's kind of small, and I just want to be able to play around. I don't know if I'm actually going to keep it rendered, but this allows me to play around. Like, for example, if this shape is lighter on the edges, right, and then darker in the middle, so we have like this very dark blue right in the middle. That kind of is consistent with that look that we just had. And so what if we did that in other spots? So again, this is another type of storytelling, right? I always just call it logic, but it's like you have a logic, and the logic is that the larger the mass, the darker the center is going to be, but even on a small shape, that the center is going to be the darkest, right? So kind of like fire, right? It sort of like has this very similar thing. That's the logic. So here's a big shape. Let's put the dark in the middle, you know? Maybe not as much dark over here, right? Because these are little wispies. And the wispies are actually going to be a little bit lighter. So maybe I'll lighten them up a little bit, you know? And as long as I'm consistent, right? Then it should look good. And there should be that logic that even if you don't know... Again, this is where, like, even if you don't know the logic, because when you look at it as the viewer, you may not know what was going on in my mind. But you should be able to kind of see that there was a logic, you know? That's kind of what I'm going for. Or like even if you don't know what it is, right? And then again, darkest in the middle. But maybe not everywhere in the dark or in the middle, right? Again, just like this. I realize this one is, that's the surface, but here, like, down here is the darkest, so maybe there's some of these spots down here, right here, that are really, popping off with the little bursties. And then maybe there's like I do like a distortion thing. Yes, the sun plasma burst would be cool. Yeah. That was my reference, right? So using but not necessarily for like making them look exactly like a plasma burst, but more like using it as sort of to understand, to make choices, right? Because I need to make choices, and these choices are like, where is it dark, where is it light, and how do these things function? Maybe there's some lighter shapes that loop around or something. And now also, if we want, right, I could come in here with like a lighter color and detail just a little bit of like these like the foliage. Or again, maybe this is too fine, but trying to show things that are if I do like a silhouette here, right, I'm trying to make the silhouette look like it's being pulled towards the thing. And I gotta be careful with that though, because that could get too tiny of details. Also like the idea that this is sort of, these things are kind of breaking off, but not too much, right? Probably get some light down here. Some of this could probably get a little more misty down here, right? Because again, I want this to be very clear. Like this, the water's still falling, but if you've ever seen it, like waterfalls in a strong windstorm, they can kind of they kind of go in waves, right? The wind will like pick up and the water will catch, but then the next stuff for a second it'll fall down, then it catches again, and it's kind of this pattern. And so again, I'm trying to sort of follow what you might expect if this thing were real. And maybe I bring in like another color around it too, like some white or something, like little additional little bursts, some specular highlights. Ooh, trees. Trees would be nice. Put some trees in here that are blowing. Right, so I'm basically still sketching, I mean, yeah, I'm detailing a little bit, but is that gonna look like a tree? Bob Ross would not be proud of me. Very unhappy trees being sucked into a vortex. Um, would we put a big brave tree in the foreground? No. I like the idea of the waves though up in here. Actually, don't know if I want these trees there. Part of me does think I should put some trees, but the problem is if I only put like one tree, then it's not going to be clear. So putting multiple trees. Also, initially I was going to do like a house, but I don't know if I can do a house silhouette. But maybe what I can do is like the fence. I don't know how the fence would stay intact. there at one point was a fence. Maybe there's a cow. Maybe there's like a cow just being sucked away. It flying through the sky or through the air, like a foreground cow. I'm also kind of trying to like come in here with like a softener brush a little bit and sort of smudge some of this. Like where are the hard edges? Like here's a hard edge, right? And then where's the soft stuff? Like maybe around the perimeter. As you sort of radiate out, it becomes a little softer. But like I don't want everything to be too hard edged, because again, this thing is like warping space and time, or warping space, and so surely there should be some blurriness to it, you know, like right along this perimeter. So it's kind of this balancing act of like, how do I show this and make it look interesting? I think that's what the fog is doing well. Like there's this little like white mist here. And maybe these are some trees. But see, trees aren't gonna, they're rooted, so they're not gonna be perfectly in the ground, right? Or I mean, they will be in the ground, but they're not gonna be like completely leaning, like, because they're much more. This is something like it's not materials, but it's, I guess, more material science, where like trees are quite rigid, right? So they're not gonna be leaning at the same angle a flower is, right? A flower could be going straight towards the thing, but the tree is gonna be more bendy, right? It's gonna just a little bit of a lean. Even though the thing might be very strong over here, it's only gonna, it's like try to bend, because like again, it's a full tree, right? They have a rigid trunk. I still don't know if I want the tree in there. But anyway, it's fun. I really enjoy this kind of thing. Maybe some more softness in here. And then I think at some point, like at this stage, you know, maybe I haven't quite figured out the wave situation. Let's see. I guess strong winds. So waves and strong wind. Images. No, coast. Coastal strong winds, waves. No, I want to see the beach. Like waves on the beach. Nope. Shore. Strong winds. I mean, I guess they don't really look like anything. They just look... Maybe just up a little higher. If anything, it would be the branches snapping that way. Yeah. Everything would be kind of pulling that way. True. And you could have, yeah, the branches going like inverted. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, look, there's a lot. This is where you start to have to like ask, like, well, what do you want it to show? You know, is this a farmland? Is this a person? You know, you could have like the classic, the umbrella going inverted, you know, like to really show how strong the winds are, because like that's a relatable experience. So yeah, you could put a person in here. You could put, you know, a bit of comedy with like, you know, I was thinking like a cow floating in or something, where like the cow's getting sucked. Again, a little bit, maybe not everyone's taste, but there's a lot of different ways you can show wind. You know, it could be on trees, it could be on water, it could be on sky, it could be just the grass if you wanted to go super textured. I don't know if I'm going to go super textured on the grass. I think I'm mostly going to do like the natural environments, but I don't know. I also, I haven't played with the sun at all. Like the literal, like there's no sky. Everything's very weird and overcasty, which I don't know if I like. Maybe playing with the lighting a bit, not in relation to the story, but just playing with the lighting to make it more vibrant, or you know, but again, that might change the mood, so maybe overcast is the mood I want. So some of this is like, I'm not really sure, and I gotta think about it, right? I'm still solving problems. You know, I could probably do more sketching and try to think through, like, ideally, what mood would this be? I think stormy. It feels like a storm. The difference, though, just, would the water be pulled up the base of the cliff? If we wanted it to be that high, like, we could. The only fear I would have is that that would become a little bit of, like, a focal point. I was thinking about just making the waves a little stronger and kind of trying to have them clearly look like it's a, you know, like, if this is an incline, you know, maybe make them coming up a little bit more. You know, something like that. That could work. But yeah, we definitely have to think about, like, how... so one thing I did think about, so if this were an actual storm, right, you would expect overcast. But if this were, say, a science experiment gone wrong, it might actually make more sense to have, like, a sunny day so that the audience doesn't confuse it with some weird storm, right? Like, maybe we want to draw the visual connections, but not the emotional, you know, like, but maybe we do. Maybe we want it to feel like a storm, in which case maybe an overcast day would be better, right? And so this is like, what would happen if I were to make this very sunny? You know, just as a quick fix, but, like, I don't think it's going to look good, but, you know, so whoops, that's not. You know, what if I were to put sun in here, very bright? You know, just like a bright day. Again, this looks awful, but you get the point. So I'm just popping an alert to say how much I love this. Oh, thanks. But yeah, like, maybe it would make the storytelling better if it was a sunny day. Again, I don't know how to do sunny days. Or not just... Or maybe an overlay? I don't know. Can I please not look toxic green? But yeah, thank you, Casey. I appreciate it. But yeah, there might be an argument for, like, sunny day vibes on this, where you have a little bit more, you know, instead of the blue light. Because we have some blue light, which is kind of weird. But, like, what if you had, you know, like, actual sun and just went, you know, like, lots of light. I don't know if that might just be a little weird. Yeah, normal day at the office and then everything goes wrong, right? Whereas so I feel like the overcast skies makes it feel more like this is a long-term thing, you know, like it's had time to grow and grow and it's changing the weather. Like, maybe that's, again, maybe that is what we want. I don't know. I think in a still image, it works better if it's stormy because it makes the vibe better. Whereas if it were in a movie, I think you could show the progression of it better to where, like, you know, imagine you have some supervillain concocting some mad experiment in their lair, and, you know, the palm trees on the beach start, you know, the water starts kicking up and the palm trees start bending, and, you know, it's still sunny out, but the birds start getting, you know, the birds are, you know, flying and chirping or yapping away in one moment, and then they start getting sucked in. Like, you know, you could show that progression. Whereas I think if you just take a snapshot of it and it looks like a storm but everything's sunny, I think it's not going to be as clear to the viewer. But again, maybe. And this is the difficulty of visual storytelling, right? It's like, what's the difference? What's being communicated differently if I made it a sunny day versus a cloudy day? I don't know. You know, it's I could do a mock-up of both. If this were not just me having fun painting on stream, I might continue this painting. This would be a fun painting to continue. There's a lot I could do with brushwork. Also, why am I painting with an airbrush? There's a lot I could do with brushwork to really, like, make this stuff feel painterly and interesting and the material that I want it to feel, you know. A lot of painting that could be done. Still very loose. But also I think part of that looseness is good because there's an energy to this, right? So that's another choice. Like, how loose do I keep it, you know? Because that energy being, you know, communicated in the waves. Do I want literal just like lines to show just how chaotic it is? That might actually work, you know? This is the stuff that I like about visual communication or storytelling, you know? It's like the line quality can convey something, you know? If you paint like a, ignore that for a moment. Actually, we'll use this as the background. Right? Like if you paint a face in a nice fluid motion, big eyes, right? I'm trying to make the same shapes. That's something. Or maybe we'll even do this, a smiley. That's one, that's a vibe, right? I don't know what it is. It's a pretty basic. But what if I did the same image? Same, I'm gonna do only four shapes, right? The big shape here. I'm gonna connect it because I plan on connecting it. So only four shapes. So big shape, two eyes, and a smile, right? But what if I instead I did this, right? Like just like this is a totally. Whoops. Let's try to be, you know, faithful to the shapes here. I'm trying to make it the same, you know. Like this is just a different vibe, right? Like this is absolutely, this is more terrifying. It doesn't feel as, you know, we'll even make it more round here. You know, it just doesn't have the same thing, right? Obviously it's a little more bold, but like it just doesn't feel the same, you know? And I think the point is like, depending on what your story is, you might want something closer to that, right? That's a little more creepy, you know, with the, again, same shapes, just very different line quality. And I think something like that is a choice in like in the waves, you know? Do we want these waves to be, the second dude feels more swag? Yeah, I mean it's different. The point is it's a different feeling, right? But like yeah, do we want perfectly rendered high definition waves, or do we want this like choppy, you know, stylized version that makes it feel like it's just chaos, like someone took a, you know, Sharpie and just started marking things? Like that might be the vibe we're going for, you know? Again, things to consider. And like, why would I do one thing versus the other? And yeah. Okay, what is this bright blue thing? So I had this like earlier, I was like, oh, what if we put some moonlight in here? And I put this very blue, but now that I don't really care about that. I'm gonna actually tamp that back a little bit. And I think this lead-in can be where we do some like little shapes or something. There is an artist on Instagram. I don't know if they're a professional artist or if they've done big work for like big companies, but I always really like I think their name is Raspberry Cupcake, maybe? On not on Instagram, on Twitter. They do environments, but they paint with like a lot of this very bold lines. And the reason I said I don't know if they do stuff like big name stuff is because I feel like their work could absolutely be in like Magic the Gathering work. Like they have some super good stuff, but it has like a look to it that's a little more, compared to like finished stuff, it has a little bit more choppiness to it, like a little bit of like I don't know, I don't think chicken scratch is the right word, but they have a lot of like chaotic brushwork, and they have, I don't know if they've done it intentionally or if they've just like they painted that way, and so they kept painting lots of things, and the things that looked best are their like stormy scenes. But they paint a lot of chaotic scenes, and it fits really well. So they have chaotic brushwork, and they paint a lot of storms and like explosions, right? And so it kind of fits. It it's like the perfectly aligned choice. Um, like a sort of it's their mark making is very chaotic, right? It's very chicken scratchy, lots of little lines with lots of energy, right? Again, so like if this were the wave they were painting, instead of making lots of shapes that are one fluid shape, they would go like, lots of shapes. Like it's almost like a scribble way of painting, but it works for their subject matter because their subject matter tends to be chaos, explosions, storms, that kind of thing, where they're like the little particles they put. So I'm kind of debating whether like, do I do that for the water here, or do I try to illustrate this in a different way, maybe more, I don't know, like how do I want my mark making to be? It's a choice, and it's a choice that isn't completely inconsequential. It helps communicate something. It may not matter. I don't know if I can find their... Yeah, let me try to find it. Let me go to Twitter. I don't actually know their name. I just know they have the word raspberry in their name. It might be Raspberry Cupcake. And I could also be remembering... I could also just be misremembering. Sometimes I'll have an idea like this in my head. I can't... Is this them? No. If I ever find their work or come across it on my feed, I will make sure of like saving it and then bring it back. I'll bring this topic back up again because I think it's an interesting topic of like mark making. And again, I don't know if they do it intentionally or if they've just leaned into subject matters that sort of work with that way of mark making. Like, I kind of get the sense that maybe they've just picked subjects that work with the way they already paint, because I don't think they are... as far as I know, they're like, in my opinion, their growth has been like astronomical. I've only been I think I've been following them for a couple years. Their work has been slowly popping up on my feed in over the last couple years, and I've always liked it. They've always had cool ideas, and I don't know how often I see their work. Maybe like once a month or something. But I feel like it's gotten a lot better, and I do feel like, because I get the feeling that they're quite like a young artist, or younger in the sense of like their art journey. I do get the feeling that this is just the way they paint, but it's just interesting to me that it so perfectly coincides with the subject matters they work with, and I think it's awesome. Like I like, that's great. I mean, if there's a way you like working and it does a thing really well, like, heck yeah, pick subject matters that lean into it. And maybe not. Maybe it's totally intentional. Maybe they've done tons of, practicing of different ways of working, and, but I think I have seen stuff from them that isn't like, or that is like that isn't those subject matters. So it's not like it's every chaotic painting, or every painting is chaotic. But yeah. I think it's fun. I like thinking about this stuff because it's a nice reminder that you have power to do, like, you are in control of it, right? It's not just like, oh, I paint the way I paint. Like, I don't know, the way you paint communicates something, and you can change ways. Now, you don't have to. You don't have to change how you paint. Just like the person I was talking about, they probably pick subject matters to benefit the way they paint. But yeah, I wish I think their name's Raspberry something. It has the word raspberry in it. That's all I know. And I really like their work. Okay, does that look like a coast? Maybe we can go a little bit more orange back here. Just to like the, the sandy color a little bit, just a bit more ocean. I don't know. I'm not even sure if this looks like an ocean. I think we should probably do more. I'm probably putting too much focus on this part right now. Stormy beach. I don't know. Thank you for the follow. Thank you, thank you. All right, so let's bring in some. This is very blue green. What if we bring this in just to be a little bit less, or not, maybe not less, maybe more blue, but like blue gray up at the top like this. So this is where I want to do a new layer. I actually am thinking about taking a break now or ending stream because I am getting a little bit tired. And I'm not quite sure where I want to go with this. I feel like I need to think about it for a bit. But I do think bringing in some non-green colors in here could be good. I don't know. Maybe that's too much right there. I think I found them on Twitter. Oh, I think that's it. I think that's it. So, let me see if what I was saying fit there when I actually show their art on stream. Sometimes I have a tendency to... Let's see. Yeah, so like, again, like here's a painting by them. The Raspberry Cupcake. Like this here. Can you guys see this? Like their brushwork is super, like if you zoom in, like look at their brushwork. I don't like, to me it's pretty chaotic, right? I mean, it's very, but it's like they do paint a lot of like stormy scenes, or like I don't know what's happening back here, but like stuff is happening. It's raining, like I don't know, it doesn't give you like super cheery, let's go walking through here. Like, okay, maybe, I don't know, like it could be like, I mean, this is like one of their, oh, they have a lot of work. Not all of their work is, let me find some. And again, not all of their work is this way. Also, what is this stuff? I don't know what's happening here. But like they have a lot of like just like big spiky towers, but their brushwork is similar. This is not a high quality image. Or something like this maybe would be another example where like they have like their brushwork is not the cleanest, but they paint like literal explosion of sun and light, and their brushwork kind of mirrors it, right? Like again, it's a little blurry, so it actually is probably not as clear. But like they do a lot of this stuff, and I feel like it gives a vibe. Like it's like, yeah, this is. But anyway, I like this stuff from them. So yeah, the raspberry cupcake, it's the raspy cupcake. not raspberry, raspy. But anyway, I like their work, and whenever I see like this kind of, it's just it's a certain vibe. I don't know how to describe it. Again, I don't know. Like, I think a lot of the subjects they paint tend to work well with that. Not all of them, but they do paint a lot of like sunsets and stuff, which you know can have a bit of a weird vibe where like their brushwork doesn't totally mesh with the look. But when they paint things like explosions, I feel like they nail it. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to show all of their work, but anyway, I just think it's cool. They're a big Creo fan. They make fan art too. Okay, I don't know what that is, but yeah. Thanks for looking, Luna Cathedral. Yeah, thank you for looking that up. But yeah, I think that kind of thing though, I'm sure there are artists out there who I could make a stronger case for what I was just saying than them. Now that I'm looking at their art, it's not as extreme as maybe I sold you guys on it, in terms of the line work. It's nothing like this face, but it does have an energy to it. And again, that's kind of what I'm sort of trying to lean a little bit into that. But yeah, I know some artists do like the opposite, where they have extremely smooth lines and brushwork. Everything is like super polished, and like when they paint like pristine looking environments, it looks really good, right? Because it's like it kind of fits, and there's like a vibe, you want, like, I think more than just what's in the image, but also how you make the image can affect how people view it to some degree. I mean, again, I think it's a small effect. I don't think it's a huge effect. It's not gonna like, make or break your image if you choose to use a certain way of texturing or something. But I do think it does contribute a little bit, and it's fun to think about, like, how can you play with that? Okay, but yeah, I think I'm gonna end stream here because I'm finding myself noodling, but I do really like how this is going so far. Yeah, maybe we'll end up doing like another stream on this next time, and maybe each rock will get its own, like, light and shadow, and we can really render this. Another artist I really enjoy his rendering of rocks is Anthony Avon, and he is extremely skilled. Like, I know, I think he has done work for Magic the Gathering, and maybe not, I don't know yet. I think he has. But yeah, so he does like rocks in a certain way, which is not how I want to do my rocks, but it would be fun to like do hyper rendered stuff. I don't know, probably not this image. But anyway, I gotta think about it, because obviously I used like a green base for this, or green blue, so maybe some color adjustments are in order. Everything's a little bit green. So yeah, we'll see how this ends up looking. But thank you guys for hanging out. I do appreciate it. All the support means a lot. Everybody who came in with the raid. Glad to whoever I was watching raid you. I believe you were watching Sims Art. Sims Art raided us. Very, very thankful to them. Their art is also just amazing. And yeah, so thank you again. Let's find somebody to raid. So see it. If you're on YouTube, thanks for stopping by. I stream 3 days a week, Mondays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. So next stream will be on Saturday. No, next stream will be Thursday. I can't day of the week math very well. Next stream will be Thursday.